Chapter 41:28. The Extremity of Martial. Everyone recognized Hyakuten's identity. They were extremely shocked. In the history of martial arts in the All Heavens sacred world, the number of cultivators known as the Extremity of Martial could be counted on one hand. The Extremity of Martial represented the limits of martial arts, as well as the greatest battle prowess. Out of all the extremities of martial, Hyakuten was a very special existence. He only existed for a very short period of time before disappearing, like a flash in the pan. Now that he had reappeared, it naturally shocked everyone. The Extremity of Martial? Daikarma Ruins looked at Hyakuten and narrowed his eyes slightly. They were extremely cold. On the other side, the Yang God Sword Emperor and the defiant demon Li Yuan were also very surprised. The Extremity of Martial did not exist in the era where the three of them lived, so they were very unfamiliar with the term. At the same time, they were very disdainful of it. With Hyakuten's strength, he indeed had the right to ascend to the Extremity of Martial in the All Heavens sacred world. However, it seemed laughable to claim to be the Extremity of Martial before the three of them. Hyakuten's eyes were cold and emotionless. He swept his gaze across Daikarma Ruins before looking at Nyetian. He said, "There's something dangerous in your body. Let me extract it for you." Nyetian's expression changed in shock. He could not help but cry out in surprise. In the next moment, he suddenly felt an invisible restraining force appear. It enveloped his entire body and prevented him from moving. Immediately afterwards, Nyetian felt waves of powerful pressure from the surrounding space. His martial body immediately tensed up, and his bones and meridians actually showed signs of cracking under the terrifying pressure. The pain of his marrow immediately made him sweat profusely. However, he could not even make a sound under the terrifying pressure. "That madman!" The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart growled when he saw this. He wanted to charge over, but he was stopped by Qingqi. Qingqi shook his head and said, "You and I both know his temper. No one can stop him from doing what he wants to do." But he. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's eyes burned with fury. He was momentarily at a loss for words. He was worried that Hyakuten would kill Nyetian. "If we make a move now, it will only enrage him," Qingqi said calmly. "I believe that he won't dare to do anything to Nyetian." Cold Red Life Loyal Heart stared at Hyakuten and took a deep breath to calm down. However, he did not relax. If it came to a critical moment, he would still make a move. Even if he knew he was no match for them, he was not afraid at all. Hyakuten was an evil person. Even though he was also a celestial emissary, he was fundamentally different from the other celestial emissaries, and Hyakuten's strength was not any weaker than Donghuang Jingrong. When Donghuang Jingrong was still alive, Hyakuten was already on par with him. And now, Hyakuten's strength had definitely surpassed Donghuang Jingrong's in the past. As for Hyakuten's origin, it was very mysterious. Other than Donghuang Jingrong, only Qingqi knew about it. High up in the sky, Nyetian was imprisoned in a strange space-time and could not move at all. Under the terrifying pressure from the outside world, the power in his body had completely gone out of control. The most terrifying thing was that he felt that the seal on the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast was about to be broken. The pressure from the outside world, coupled with the pressure from the violent power in his body, pushed his martial body to the limit and instantly reached the edge of collapse. He could not control himself at all, and there were even signs of his soul being separated from his body. Under the immense pain, he wanted to cry out, but he could not make a sound. Hyakuten's face was cold and solemn. His eyes were like cold blades, piercing Nyetian's body, and he continued to release invisible pressure. Even though he was calm, he could not help but be surprised. He did not expect the power in Nyetian's body to be so stable, far beyond his expectations. The Yang God Sword Emperor and the defiant demon Li Yuan faced each other, and did not continue to fight. They were obviously very afraid of Dikashu and Hyakuten, and did not dare to waste their power at will. Dikashu did not make a move either. He was sensing the changes in the power in Nye Tian's body, waiting for an opportunity to act. At this time, Nye Tian's body was covered in bloody wounds, and his whole body was a bloody mess. He finally knew why Hyakuten had helped him recover just now. It was for this moment. If he had not recovered, he would not have been able to withstand the pressure at this time. Your martial body is stronger than I thought, but I must get what I want. Hyakuten's eyes were cold. He said coldly, and then he increased the pressure in an instant. Boom! In an instant, Nye Tian felt a terrifying power surge out of his body, rushing into his limbs and veins like a wild beast. Suddenly, his skin and flesh were torn apart and his bones cracked. His entire body was badly damaged, and it seemed that he could not maintain a complete body. The tragic and bloody scene caused everyone's expression to change. They cried out in surprise, and after taking a breath of cold air, their expressions became dull. Who would have thought that Hyakuten, who was at the extreme of martial arts, would do such a cruel thing to a young warrior in front of everyone? However, Hyakuten's expression did not change at all. He did not care what others thought of him. However, Hyakuten could not help but be surprised, as if he had discovered something on Nye Tian's body. Roar! At this time, a low roar suddenly sounded, and then a scarlet halo that was as hot as the sun surged out of Nye Tian's body, shaking the heaven and earth. Nye Tian's eyes suddenly shrank, and they were incomparably red. Obviously, he was extremely angry. He did not expect that Hyakuten would actually break the seal of the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast, causing it to be released. 9 Extreme Chaos Beast. The moment the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast appeared, the rebelling god 8 symbols in the sky could not help but exclaim in surprise and excitement. The 9 Extreme Chaos Beast was also something that Yuan Heigen had to obtain. It's finally out. When Hyakuten saw the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast come out, his cold eyes flashed with a touch of passion. He was going to take the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast out of Nye Tian's body. You actually want the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast? Nye Tian saw that Hyakuten's expression was strange, and he roared in his heart. However, his body was completely out of control, and he could not use any strength at all. He did not expect that Hyakuten was also interested in the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast. Such a dangerous thing should not be on you. The corner of Hyakuten's mouth twitched slightly, and he waved his big hand in the void. Suddenly, an invisible force imprisoned the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast. Roar! The 9 Extreme Chaos Beast roared angrily and wanted to resist, but it could not shake that huge force. The next moment, a shocking scene happened. Chapter 41-29. Nye Tian's eyes trembled as the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast was taken away. His eyes were bloodshot, but the terrifying pressure outside his body was still there, and he could not resist at all. Hyakuten's methods were too strange and unimaginable. Swoosh! At that moment, an air-piercing sound was heard, and a terrifying force appeared, heading straight for Nye Tian. Nye Tian immediately felt a fatal threat, and his expression changed. Purring! Just as he was about to lose his life, another force appeared and blocked the attack. Dikashu's face darkened, and his cold eyes locked on Hyakuten. He said in a low voice, "You have already gotten what you want. Do you still want to protect him?" He was the one who attacked just now, wanting to take the opportunity to take Nye Tian's dragon's vein. Nye Tian's body was very unstable under the huge pressure, and it was the best time to take it away. Dikashu wanted to take Nye Tian's dragon's vein by force, so he suddenly attacked. But he did not expect Hyakuten to protect Nye Tian. The ultimate martial evil heavens had clearly shown extreme disgust towards Nye Tian, so why would they protect him instead? It was very puzzling. I said, "He is the person chosen by Donghuang Jingrong. Apart from me, No one can touch him. Hyakuten's eyes were murderous, and he spoke in a cold and overbearing manner. Dikishu's face darkened and he said cold, "So, you want to be my enemy? Whoever dares to touch him will have to kill me first." Hyakuten took a step forward, and his aura surged wildly. Suddenly, a strange aura was released, forming a ripple in the void, instantly covering the void for hundreds of thousands of meters. Boundary! Dikishu suddenly felt something, and his face darkened as he exclaimed, "This aura is..." Nye Tian felt the boundary aura in the void and his eyes trembled. He was extremely shocked. He was actually very familiar with this aura. It was very similar to the star-forbidden space that Emo Rushi had been imprisoned in, but there were also some differences. It was far larger and more terrifying than the star-forbidden space. "Kid, if you want to return to the primordial starry sky, come find me." Right at that moment, Hyakuten suddenly spoke. Then, he shot out a palm strike. A vigorous power pushed Nye Tian out of the spirit formation. Before Nye Tian could react, he was already outside the barrier. "Are you okay?" Red Life Loyal Heart instantly came to Nye Tian and asked nervously. "I'm fine." Nye Tian clenched his teeth and persevered. Although he looked badly mutilated, his injuries were not fatal. After the terrifying oppression disappeared, his martial body was slowly recovering. At this time, a soft force surged into Nye Tian's body, causing him to feel much less pain. "Thank you, Senior Qing Chi." He turned around and thanked Qing Chi. "It's good that you're fine." Qing Chi looked at Hyakuten in the boundary with a gloomy face. He was actually a little worried. Nye Tian took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and asked in a grim voice, "Senior Qing Chi, who is he exactly?" Hyakuten did not kill him but took away his 9 extreme chaos beast, which made him very angry. Qing Chi glanced at Nye Tian and did not say anything. What does he want to do by opening the primordial starry sky forbidden space? Red Life Loyal Heart looked at Hyakuten in the boundary with a puzzled expression. "He wants to bring those 3 people into the primordial starry sky," Qing Chi said with a trembling gaze. "Huh!" Nye Tian was surprised, and a strange look surged in his eyes. He originally thought that Hyakuten opened the boundary to stabilize time and space for the battle with Dikishu. He never expected that Hyakuten would directly take Dikishu and the other 2 people away. At this time, there were only 4 people in the primordial starry sky forbidden space. Hyakuten, Dikishu, Yang God Sword Emperor, and Li Yuan. Boom. At this time, Hyakuten, who was in the primordial starry sky forbidden space, waved his hand, and suddenly a black vortex appeared in front of him. Upon seeing the vortex, Nye Tian's eyes flickered as he exclaimed, "It's that vortex!" The 9 extreme chaos beast had disappeared into the same black vortex. There was no doubt that the black vortex was a space-time door. "That's the entrance to the primordial starry sky," Qing Chi said solemnly. Nye Tian's eyes trembled. No wonder Hyakuten wanted him to go to the primordial starry sky. It seemed that the 9 extreme chaos beast was already in the primordial starry sky. "What do you want to do?" At this time, in the primordial starry sky forbidden space, Dikishu seemed to sense something and asked in horror, "Come with me to the primordial starry sky." The corners of Hyakuten's mouth twitched into a strange smile. He took a step forward and disappeared into the black vortex. Dicurson furrowed his brows and immediately felt a huge suction force appear in the void, pulling him towards the black vortex. On the other side, the Yang God Sword Emperor and Li Yuan also sensed this, but their reactions were very different. The Yang God Sword Emperor looked calm. To him, entering the primordial starry sky was not a bad thing. However, Li Yuan went berserk. He obviously did not want to leave. "You want to control me with a mere boundary and a space-time door?" Dikishu growled and said coldly, "Wishful thinking." As soon as he finished speaking, he slapped out with his palm, trying to destroy the black vortex. However, His powerful palm force was swallowed up by the small black vortex. The black vortex was like a black hole that could swallow everything. Dikashu was stunned again. He immediately changed his strategy and slapped at the boundary in the void. However, the moment the palm force landed on the boundary, it was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no ripple at all. This boundary is strange. At this time, he suddenly realized that the boundary in front of him was not ordinary. Boom! On the other side, Li Yuan also attacked, but encountered the same situation as Dikashu. Even though the two of them had the ability to penetrate the sky and earth, they could not cause any damage to the boundary. What was more terrifying was that the primordial starry sky forbidden space was rapidly shrinking with the black vortex as the center. Obviously, it wanted to squeeze Dikashu and the others into the black vortex. When Ye Tian saw this, his eyes trembled slightly. Of course, he hoped that Dikashu and the others would be pulled into the primordial starry sky. Although Hyakuten had taken away the 9-level Chaos Beast, Dikashu and the others were undoubtedly a greater threat. If the three of them entered the primordial starry sky, at least the Southern Glory sacred world would be safe. However, he was very worried. Could the primordial starry sky forbidden space trap Dikashu and the others? Don't worry, the primordial starry sky forbidden space is a boundary that is connected to the primordial starry sky. Even if the three of them have heaven-defying abilities, they will not be able to break the boundary. Qing Qi was very calm and said confidently, "I hope so." Nye Tian was still a little nervous and uneasy. At this time, in the primordial starry sky forbidden space, Dikashu and the others had been forced to a space of a few thousand meters. Dikashu was very angry. He suddenly turned around and looked at the rebel god 8 phases. Chapter 41:30. In the primordial starry sky exclusion boundary, Dikashu and Li Yuan were in danger. The two of them were experts who had surpassed the peak and were extremely arrogant. Under normal circumstances, they would not even bother to join forces with others. But in order to break the exclusion boundary, they could only put down their pride and join forces. The Yang God Sword Emperor sensed the two's actions and panicked. He was in the exclusion boundary and could naturally feel its power. With his strength, he might not be able to break the exclusion boundary even if he concentrated all his will and struck with all his strength. But Li Yuan and Dikashu were not weaker than him. If they joined forces, it was very likely that they could break the exclusion boundary. And once Li Yuan and Dikashu escaped, the Yang God Sword Emperor alone would not be able to stop them. At that time, the all-heavens sacred world would usher in a catastrophe. The cultivator called Hyakuten seemed unfathomable. He had left behind only a exclusion boundary and seemed to be a little careless. At the same time, outside the primordial starry sky exclusion boundary, countless eyes stared at Dikashu and Li Yuan. Their eyes trembled, and they were clearly very nervous. Everyone could see that the situation was dangerous and prayed that the exclusion boundary would not be broken. Nye Tian, Scarlet Life Loyal Heart, and the others were also nervous. Their meridians were all tensed up, and they could clearly hear their own heartbeats, as if they were beating right next to their ears. At that moment, Dikashu and Li Yuan moved at the same time. Emperor Dragon shakes the 8 directions. Dikashu's eyes darkened slightly, and he slapped out with his palm. Immediately, surging dragon chi roared out violently, and 8 terrifying dragon shadows appeared in the void. The dragon might was impressive, and they were extremely realistic, as if they were made of flesh and blood. Roar! The 8 dragon shadows roared at the same time, and their roars shook the heavens. Then, their huge bodies fiercely pounced, rushing towards the 8 directions of the exclusion boundary. 8 symbols destroy the heavens. At the same time, the inverse God 8 symbols in the air move. 8 terrifying rays of inverse Yuan power were released, instantly enveloping the 8 dragon shadows. The dragons' bodies condensed into terrifying armor that was as dark as cold iron. Under the dragon shadow's aura, the dragon's aura instantly increased several times. Karma Ruin and Li Yuan were both warriors who had surpassed the limits of the sky martial arts realm. Their understanding of power had reached the acme of perfection. Even though the two of them had never worked together before, they had already gained a deep understanding of each other's strength through the previous few attacks. Therefore, when the two of them worked together for the first time, they reached a level of tacit understanding that was hard for ordinary people to imagine. It was as if the two of them could merge their powers together. Di Yixian was already incomparably ferocious. After receiving Li Yuan's help, its explosive power instantly increased several times. When the Yang God Sword Emperor felt the energy fluctuations from the 8 dragons, his eyes couldn't help but tremble. He was extremely shocked. He didn't expect that these two people, who he had never met before, would be so terrifying when they teamed up for the first time. Such terrifying power was enough to seriously injure him. Could the primordial starry sky, forbidden realm, withstand the joint attack of these two people? Bang! 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 Just at that moment, the 8 dragon silhouettes bombarded the barrier at almost the same time. Immediately, explosions rang out and the heavens and earth shook. But in the next moment, an extremely strange scene occurred. Under the impact of the 8 dragon shadows, dazzling white cracks directly appeared on the barrier. But at the same time, the black vortex in the center of the barrier rapidly expanded, like a giant beast hidden in another world, opening its huge dark mouth, wanting to devour everything. Di Yixian immediately felt the terrifying space-time devouring aura, causing his imperial dragon soul to tremble. How is this possible? The strange change made him exclaim in disbelief. His imperial dragon soul would only react when it sensed a life-threatening threat. Could it be that the black vortex could threaten his life? That black vortex is the eye of the barrier. At the same time, Li Yuan's rebelling god 8 phases let out a strange cry, appearing very panicked. The power of the 8 dragons bombarded the barrier, but in reality, it was being devoured by the eye of the barrier. On the other side, the Yang God Sword Emperor's eyes trembled as he instantly understood. The 3 of them were all top experts and they understood almost at the same time. Di Yixian and Li Yuan's attacks had all been absorbed by the barrier, which meant that the barrier had an extremely strong devouring power. And that black vortex was most likely the legendary black hole with an extremely strong devouring power. According to legend, even a flash of light could not escape the devouring power of a black hole. The black vortex was the eye of the barrier. When the power of the 8 dragons bombarded the barrier, it was absorbed by the eye of the barrier, which was equivalent to strengthening the power of the black hole. Damn it! At this time, Li Yuan roared, and the aura of the rebelling god 8 phases skyrocketed. He wanted to break the barrier. Don't act rashly. But Di Yixian was calmer than him. He growled and shouted, "The eye of the barrier is growing too fast. If you attack, it will only make the eye stronger." Li Yuan alone could not break through the barrier's original defense. Instead, it would increase the barrier's power. Although the power of the 8 dragons caused cracks to appear on the barrier had an extremely strong recovery ability. From the looks of it, before the 8 dragons could break through the barrier, Di Yixian and the others would be devoured by the eye of the barrier. "You too, I'll be leaving first." At this time, the Yang God Sword Emperor suddenly laughed strangely. Then, his figure moved, and he became one with his sword. He turned into a sword of flames and rushed into the eye of the barrier. Is he crazy? Seeing this, the rebelling god 8 phases' eyes trembled and he roared. He never expected that the Yang God Sword Emperor would take the initiative to rush into the eye of the barrier. "I'll be leaving too." Di Yixian frowned. Then, he took a step forward, turned into a dragon, and rushed into the eye of the barrier. "You!" Li Yuan roared, but in the next moment, he understood something. Then, the rebelling god 8 phases broke apart. The faces cracked inch by inch and withered like petals. The 8 faces of the rebelling god 8 phases disappeared, and finally, a dark figure appeared. Then, the dark figure moved, like a black ray, and directly entered the eye of the barrier. Almost at the same time, the 8 dragon shadows also disappeared. In the end, they still could not break the barrier. Then, the forbidden boundary quickly closed, and after merging with the eye of the barrier, it shrank rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a black dot and disappeared. In the void, all the fluctuations of power disappeared. The sky was wide and the clouds were high, as if nothing had happened. Everything happened in an extremely short period of time. Everyone stared at the place where the forbidden boundary had disappeared. They were stunned and could not react at all. Chapter 41:31. In the sky above vast cloud sacred city, the sky was blue, the clouds were white, and the wind was gentle. After a long time, the warriors standing in the air finally reacted. All of them were shocked, and at the same time, they felt a lingering fear. What happened just now? Why did those 3 terrible guys rush into the spacetime gate? That boundary is too terrifying. Those 2 joined hands, but they couldn't break it. Those 3 people left very wisely. Otherwise, I'm afraid they would have been swallowed by the black vortex. Everyone was discussing, and their eyes were trembling. However, not many people were able to figure out what exactly had happened in the Forbidden World. Fortunately, the boundary was strong enough. Otherwise, all of them would have died here, and even the entire Southern Brilliance sacred domain would have been destroyed. Senior Qingqi, you should understand, right? Nie Tian was also shocked. After taking a deep breath, he couldn't help but look at Qingqi and ask. Qingqi was very calm at this time. He coughed and said, "That boundary is called the primordial starry sky forbidden boundary. It is a powerful boundary connected to the primordial starry sky. The black vortex is the eye of the boundary and the entrance to the primordial starry sky. It is also a spacetime black hole. The young god Sword Emperor is great. He and the other 2 had no choice but to enter the primordial starry sky." Nie Tian went blank for a moment before asking in astonishment, "No choice? Don't tell me that the black hole can actually devour them?" The young god Sword Emperor and the others had already surpassed the limits of the sage realm. It was incredible that a mere black hole could force them to such an extent. Yes. Qingqi's eyes trembled slightly. He nodded and said, "With their strength, ordinary black holes can no longer do anything to their martial bodies. However, the entrance to the primordial starry sky is a singular level black hole. Even if they are strong, they can't resist it. They took the initiative to enter it while the power of the black hole is not strong. If the black hole is compressed to a very small size, they will be directly swallowed up and become a part of the black hole. This..." Nie Tian's eyes trembled and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. This small black hole was too terrifying. "Brother Qingqi, that guy is irreconcilable with us. Why did he force the sun god and the others into the primordial starry sky?" At this time, Scarlet Life Loyal Heart asked with a puzzled expression. To all the stellar envoys and stellar venerates, Hayakuten was a terrifying existence worthy of fear. In fact, a few stellar venerates and stellar envoys had died at his hands. Therefore, the Scarlet Life Dan Heart couldn't understand why Hayakuten wanted to bring the young god and others into the primordial starry sky. It didn't seem to be beneficial to him. Qingqi's eyes flickered as he said, "Perhaps he was too lonely in the primordial starry sky." The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart was stunned and didn't know what to say. Indeed, Hayakuten was the only one in the primordial starry sky, so he might feel lonely at times. The environment of the primeval starry sky was unbearable for ordinary martial artists. Perhaps only the young spirit and others at the same level as Hayakuten could stay there for a long time. Senior Qingqi, Senior Scarlet Life, what is the primordial starry sky you speak of? And that guy, as a stellar envoys, why did he want to take my power? Nie Tian asked as his eyes swept over Qing Qi and the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart. He had already felt that Hayakuten was different from the other stellar envoys. It was very strange. The star power on Hayakuten was very strange. It didn't seem to come from the star essence stone, or even the power of the stars. It was a mutated star power. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's eyes trembled as it looked at Qing Qi. Among all the stellar envoys and stellar venerates, only Qing Qi knew the true origin and identity of Hayakuten. Nie Tian, do you really want to know? Qing Qi's eyes darkened slightly, and there was a trace of panic in his expression. Yes. Nie Tian nodded firmly, very insistent. He couldn't think of what made a stellar envoys attack the Star Holy Lord. Hayakuten doesn't exist. Qing Qi's face darkened, and after a long silence, he finally spoke. A small boundary appeared around his body, isolating him from Nie Tian and the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart to prevent others from eavesdropping on their conversation. Doesn't exist? Nie Tian frowned, puzzled. What do you mean? The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart was equally puzzled. Hayakuten was already standing there, a living person. How could he say that he doesn't exist? He is a part of Lord Eastern Emperor. Qing Qi's expression was a little strange. He was born from Lord Eastern Emperor, and he is the dark side of Lord Eastern Emperor. This. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's eyes narrowed, and it was shocked. Qing Qi's eyes swept over the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart, and fell on Nie Tian. Or to be more accurate, he was born from the Star Essence Stone, and he only appeared by borrowing the dark side of Lord Eastern Emperor. He is the demon in Lord Eastern Emperor's heart. Nie Tian's face suddenly changed, and he was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He could clearly see the warning in Qing Qi's eyes. And the demon in the heart, this statement shocked him, because he had once bred an inner demon in his body, Devil's Knight. Could it be? In the next moment, Nie Tian immediately thought of something, and his face froze, unable to speak. Qing Qi was clearly warning him not to repeat Dong Huang Jingrong's mistake, and breed an inner demon in his heart. But the inner demon in his heart had already appeared, and it was Devil's Knight. Your inner demon has already appeared? Qing Qi saw Nie Tian's reaction, and his face changed, and he asked in shock. Nie Tian frowned, took a deep breath, and forced himself to calm down, and explained the process of how Devil's Knight was born. Originally, Devil's Knight was born when Nie Tian walked the path of Bloody Soul. The path of Bloody Soul was the source weapon of the heaven, earth, core, and three-soul Xian heart, and it had a great impact on the soul of a warrior, which led to the birth of Devil's Knight in Nie Tian's body. At that time, Nie Tian thought that Devil's Knight was born because of the path of Bloody Soul. But Devil's Knight said that light and darkness go hand in hand, good and evil, and he was born from the God-Fiend original embryo. From the moment Nie Tian awakened the God-Fiend original embryo, Devil's Knight was born. And in the past, Nie Tian had a situation where he was in a demonic spacetime, and it was precisely because of the influence of Devil's Knight. The path of Bloody Soul was just an opportunity for Devil's Knight to break free from Nie Tian's body and become an independent warrior. According to Devil's Knight, he was born because of the God-Fiend original embryo, and not because of the Star Essence Stone, which seemed to be somewhat different from Hayakuten. Nie Tian, I want to thoroughly check your martial body. Qing Qi heard Nie Tian's words, and his pupils shrank, and his whole body tensed up, as if something terrible had happened. Nie Tian looked at Qing Qi, and couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 41-32. Qing Qi looked at Nie Tian with trembling eyes. He was obviously panicking. He seemed to have discovered something terrifying on Nie Tian's body, but he wasn't sure yet. He wanted to thoroughly examine Nie Tian's martial body. Yes. Nie Tian didn't know what had happened, but seeing Qing Qi's reaction, he knew that something was wrong. Qing Qi nodded slightly. A strange green light flashed in his eyes. Then, a strange change happened in his pupils. They peeled away layer by layer, and the green light became more and more intense. Nie Tian was shocked when he felt the fluctuation of the eye power around him. He didn't expect that Qing Qi was a martial artist with other eyes. Moreover, his other eyes were very different from other martial artists. His eye power was more restrained. It didn't feel sharp, but it gave people a strong sense of deterrence. Nie Tian's eyes felt a little strange under the influence of the eye power. It was indescribably uncomfortable. Nie Tian, I want to examine your martial body. Don't resist. Qing Qi's eyes flashed and he said in a low voice. His voice was trembling. He was obviously very nervous. Yes. Nie Tian nodded. He took a deep breath and let his whole body relax. He used the Eye of Life. Is the situation really that serious? The Scarlet Life Dan Hart looked at Qing Qi and couldn't help but feel nervous. Nie Tian felt a strange power rush into his body like an extremely tiny stream, instantly filling his martial body, meridians, bones, flesh, and blood. It was all this tiny power. At this moment, he had the illusion that his body was being torn apart into countless small pieces. But he didn't feel the slightest pain. Instead, he felt very comfortable. What was more amazing was that he could see inside his martial body. He could see the heavenly shackles, the fiend god origin embryo, the 9 dragon veins, the star origin stone, and all the other powers. Even more detailed things, such as the runes on the heavenly shackles, the mark of the ancestral dragon on the 9 dragon veins, the fiend god power of the fiend god origin embryo, and the star runes on the star origin stone, were all very clear. For the first time, he had a clear understanding of himself. Following that, Nie Tian sensed that the gurgling streams in his body had become even thinner, and the speed of their flow was constantly increasing, like a long dragon shuttling through the void. Slowly, he felt his martial body begin to heat up, and there was actually a burning pain. However, at the same time, he could see the power within his martial body more vividly, more clearly, and more thoroughly. Brother Qing Qi, he can't take it. But at this moment, the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart suddenly shouted. I need to see what's going on inside his body. Qing Qi didn't stop. Instead, he let out a low roar. Suddenly, the power within Nie Tian's body flowed even faster, causing his meridians and bones to tremble as if they were about to break. Ouch! The pain that seeped into his bones caused Nie Tian's entire face to turn ferocious. Nie Tian, hold on, Qing Qi said in a low voice. His whole body was drenched in cold sweat, and his face was as pale as paper. Obviously, using the Eye of Life consumed a lot of his power. Even he himself couldn't hold on for much longer. Nie Tian's expression was painful, but he didn't make a sound. He just endured it silently. Is it done? After a while, the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart felt that the power within Nie Tian's body was becoming more and more unstable, and it immediately panicked. Just a little bit more. Qing Qi responded. The green light in his eyes became even brighter, and blood seeped out of the corners of his eyes. His face was pale and thin, and it was very ugly. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's nerves were tense, but it could only watch, unable to help. It's done. After a long time, Qing Qi suddenly shouted, and then the green light in his eyes instantly disappeared. His body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood, and he almost couldn't stand. Brother Qing Qi. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart stepped forward and supported Qing Qi. It infused a powerful force into Qing Qi, and then he stabilized. Nie Tian's face was filled with horror, but his martial body didn't suffer any damage. Instead, it quickly returned to normal. Senior Qing Qi, are you okay? He saw that Qing Qi's face was pale, and his whole body looked much thinner. I'm fine. Qing Qi took a deep breath, and his face was extremely cold. He stared at Nie Tian and said in a deep voice, Nie Tian, you must listen to what I am going to say next. Yes. Nie Tian saw Qing Qi's reaction, and he couldn't help but feel a little nervous, and nodded heavily. Nie Tian, The Devil's Knight you speak of is the demon in your heart. Your relationship with him is like that of Big Brother Dong Wang and Hayakuten. Qing Chi's eyes narrowed slightly, and he calmed down and said, "This." Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and his whole body was stunned, and he couldn't react for a long time. But there was something he couldn't understand, and he always felt that something was wrong. According to Qing Chi, Hayakuten was born from the Star Stone with the help of the dark side of Dongwang loftily. But although Devil's Knight was also the dark side of Nie Tian, he was born from the Godfiend embryo, and there was a fundamental difference between the two. Devil's Knight said that he was born from the Godfiend embryo, but it was only his own idea. Qing Chi saw Nie Tian's doubt and said, "I have just carefully examined your martial body, and found a shocking secret." Shocking secret? Nie Tian couldn't help but be stunned, and his face was filled with shock. Yes. Qing Chi nodded heavily and said, "I found that the Star Stone and your Godfiend embryo are slowly fusing together." Fusing? Nie Tian was stunned again and then asked, "What's wrong with that?" The power of the stars had fused with his martial body, and became his 10th Yuan meridian. It was originally a part of him, and could be considered as the power of his bloodline. The Godfiend embryo was the power of his bloodline, and two kinds of power existed in the same martial body, so there was nothing strange about them fusing together. Some martial artists with many kinds of bloodline power could fuse together, and this was also normal. But Qing Chi's reaction was very strange, as if the fusion of the Star Stone and the Godfiend embryo was a very scary thing. How is this possible? The Scarlet Life Dan Hart was stunned for a moment, and then immediately reacted and exclaimed. Nie Tian still had a strange look on his face, and was very puzzled. Nie Tian, there has never been any power that can fuse with the Star Stone. Your Godfiend embryo is the first. Qing Chi calmed down and said in a deep voice, "If two kinds of power want to fuse, under normal circumstances, it needs to meet two basic conditions. First, the attribute is compatible, and second, the strength is compatible. The so-called attribute compatibility means that the two kinds of power do not conflict with each other. And the strength is compatible means that the two kinds of power are equally strong. If one is very strong, and the other is very weak, the weak will be devoured by the strong." Chapter 41-33. The Fiend God Nascent Embryo and the Star Origin Stone were at the same level of power. Nie Tian couldn't help but frown upon hearing Qing Chi's words. He didn't think it was strange that the Fiend God Nascent Embryo and the Star Origin Stone were similar. However, Qing Chi and Scarlet Life Loyal Heart made a fuss, as if it was very scary. Qing Chi and Scarlet Life Loyal Heart looked at each other and shook their heads with a wry smile. It was obvious that Nie Tian didn't know how terrifying the Star Origin Stone was. In fact, Nie Tian had used star power to fuse with other powers before, but that was only a fusion of two powers. It was fundamentally different from the fusion of the Fiend God Nascent Embryo and the Star Origin Stone. There was nothing strange about the fusion of the Fiend God Nascent Embryo and the Star Origin Stone. But the fusion of the Fiend God Nascent Embryo and the Star Origin Stone was very terrifying. Qing Chi thought for a moment and didn't explain too much to Nie Tian. Instead, he said, "Nie Tian, it is because the Fiend God Nascent Embryo and the Star Origin Stone fused together that Devil's Knight felt that he was born from the Fiend God Nascent Embryo." "I see." Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly. Devil's Knight probably didn't know the difference between the Fiend God Nascent Embryo and the Star Origin Stone. "Yes, that's right." Qing Chi nodded. "Senior Qing Chi, there is one thing I don't understand." Nie Tian's expression changed. He immediately thought of something and said, "I sensed a power in Hayakuten that is very similar to the Star Origin Stone, but it is not the Star Origin Stone. Why is this?" Qing Chi's eyes darkened. Hayakuten was born from the Star Origin Stone. He inherited the power of the Star Origin Stone, but it is inclined towards darkness. So the star origin stone has undergone some subtle changes in his body. It can be said to be a kind of mutation. Yes. So that's how it is. Nie Tian nodded and said thoughtfully, but I don't sense any power from Devil's Night that's similar to the power of stars. Why is that? Back then, Nie Tian realized that Devil's Night had inherited almost all of his powers, including the 9-level Chaos Beast. However, the power of the stars was the only thing that Devil's Night had not used. But now, Qing Qi said with absolute certainty that Devil's Night was born from a star origin stone. How could he not be surprised? This is what makes Devil's Night so scary. Hearing Nie Tian's words, Qing Qi's expression suddenly changed. He said, Hyakuten's defying star power is even more terrifying than the power of the stars. The star-defying force is more terrifying than the power of the stars? Nie Tian was shocked. The power of the stars was known as the source of power, but it was not as terrifying as the star-defying force. It was too shocking. When Lord Dongwang was alive, he had fought with Hyakuten 3 times. Do you know what the results were? Qing Qi's eyes trembled slightly. It was obvious that many things had occurred to him. Nie Tian's eyes were burning with excitement. He really wanted to know how strong the legendary Dongwang Jingrong was. Lord Dongwang won all 3 battles. Qing Qi nodded, but his expression was a little serious as he said, however, there is a big difference between these 3 victories. In the first battle, Lord Dongwang easily defeated Hyakuten. But in the second battle, Lord Dongwang was injured. In the second battle, Lord Dongwang was injured. And in the third battle, although Lord Dongwang still won, he was seriously injured and had to rest for several years to recover. As he said this, Qing Qi looked at Nie Tian and asked, Nie Tian, do you understand the difference? Hyakuten's growth is very fast. Senior Dongwang can't suppress him. Nie Tian was very smart. How could he not understand what Qing Qi meant? Yes. Qing Qi nodded and said, in these 3 battles, both of them are growing rapidly. But unfortunately, Lord Dongwang's growth is far slower than Hyakuten's. Lord Dongwang once told me that if there was a 4th battle between him and Hyakuten, he would definitely be defeated. Definitely be defeated? Nie Tian's eyes trembled and he was shocked again. With Dongwang Jingrong's strength and arrogance, he actually said such words. It was enough to show how terrifying Hyakuten was. Qing Qi frowned and said, this time, Hyakuten has appeared again. His strength has far exceeded Lord Dongwang's peak. I'm afraid that even if Lord Dongwang was alive, he would not be his match. This. Nie Tian swallowed his saliva and he was stunned. With Qing Qi's respect for Dongwang Jingrong, saying such words was enough to prove that Hyakuten was far stronger than Dongwang Jingrong. Big brother Dongwang should have killed him. Why did you let him be the 9th Starry Sky Messenger? The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's eyes darkened, and he roared in a cold voice. It was obvious that he hated Hyakuten very much. Previously, he did not know about Hyakuten's background. Now that he knew, he could not understand why Dongwang Jingrong wanted to keep Hyakuten alive. Since Hyakuten was the devil in Dongwang Jingrong's heart, it was his dark side, and he should not exist in this world. Good and evil exist together, light and darkness accompany each other. Qing Qi's mouth twitched and he said, Lord Dongwang kept Hyakuten's life, perhaps it was to remind himself. Good and evil exist together, light and darkness accompany each other. Nie Tian muttered, this was what Devil's Night had said. Nie Tian, the reason why against the stars is stronger than the power of the stars is because it is the power of the stars after the change. After a while, Qing Qi calmed down a little and said, but Hyakuten's against the stars is very similar to the aura of the stars, which means that the change is not big. But the Devil's Night that you mentioned, he does not even have the aura of the stars. This means that the power of the stars has changed greatly in his body, and this change may even be subversive. After all, the star stone that he inherited was fused with the fiend god Yuan embryo. Senior Qing Chi, you mean? Nie Tian felt Qing Chi's nervousness, and his eyes were dull, and he said, "The Against the Stars in Devil's Night is more terrible than Hyakuten's Against the Stars?" "Yes." Qing Chi nodded, and said, "I speculate that Devil's Night's Against the Stars is far more powerful than Hyakuten's." Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and he sensed that Qing Chi seemed to have something to say, and said, "Senior Qing Chi, if you have something to say, please say it." Qing Chi's face changed, and he looked at the Scarlet Life Dan Hart, then took a deep breath, and said, "Nie Tian, I just checked your martial body, not only your strength, but also your mind. The darkness in your heart has changed, and it is far greater and stronger than Brother Dong Huang. So the power of Devil's Night is even more terrifying. So the power of Devil's Night is even more terrifying." Nie Tian's eyes darkened, and he was speechless for a moment. The truth was indeed so. The All-Ghost Ancestor had said more than once that Nie Tian was more ruthless and reckless than Dong Huang Jingrong. Chapter 41-34. Nie Tian was silent for a while and fell into deep thought. He had seen Hyakuten's power with his own eyes. That kind of power had already exceeded his understanding of martial arts. Compared to Hyakuten, Devil's Night had a more terrifying growth potential. On one hand, Nie Tian's dark side was heavier than Dong Huang Jingrong's. On the other hand, Devil's Night had inherited more power from Nie Tian's body. The scariest thing was that because of the fusion of the Star Stone and the Fiend God Yuan embryo in Nie Tian's body, Devil's Night's inherited star power had almost undergone a subversive change. This was the scariest thing. Based on this estimation, if Devil's Night grew up, he would undoubtedly become a more terrifying existence than Hyakuten. Thinking of this, Nie Tian could not help but feel his heart palpitate. Compared to the battle between Dong Huang Jingrong and Hyakuten, the former could only barely suppress the latter in the early stage. Since Hyakuten's growth was much faster than Dong Huang Jingrong's, then Devil's Night's growth should be more terrifying than Nie Tian's. Previously, when Nie Tian and Devil's Night fought a few times, he did not gain much of an advantage. If the two of them met again now, it was hard to say who would win. Nie Tian, you must find him as soon as possible. Qing Chi looked at Nie Tian, his eyes flashed with a cold light, and he spat out a word through gritted teeth. Kill! Devil's Night was more terrifying than Hyakuten. He must not be left alive. He must be killed before he grew up. Yes, Nie Tian nodded, but his eyes were not as firm as before. There was a trace of hesitation. Devil's Night had a very special relationship with him, like a parasitic brother. It was hard to describe the feeling. Thinking back, Dong Huang Jingrong defeated Hyakuten many times, but did not kill him. The reason for this should not be simple. After big brother Dong Huang fell, Hyakuten became stronger and stronger. But I didn't expect him to be this strong. At this time, Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's eyes flickered and sighed. Everyone had seen the scene just now. Hyakuten had practically single-handedly dragged the Yang God Sword Emperor and the other two into the primeval starry sky. It could even be said that Hyakuten had saved the entire all-heaven sacred world. Although Hyakuten did not fight with the Yang God Sword Emperor and the others head-on, from the strength he had displayed, he should be above the three of them. At his peak, Dong Huang Jingrong was very strong, but he was definitely not this heaven-defying. In fact, he was still quite a distance away from the Sun God Sword Emperor. After the fall of Dong Huang Jingrong, Hyakuten had actually grown to such an extent. It was truly terrifying. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He thought of what Devil's Night had once said, "As long as I kill you, I can replace you and inherit everything from you." If what Devil's Night said was true, didn't that mean that the current Hyakuten, to a certain extent, was Dong Huang Jingrong? There was no doubt that although Devil's Night had separated from Nie Tian, he still had an extremely close relationship with Nie Tian. Perhaps their strength came from the same source, and when one died, the other's strength would increase. But for now, these were all Nietion's guesses. He still did not know the real situation. Senior Qingqi, how much do you know about the primeval starry sky? Nietion suddenly thought of the 9-level Chaos Beast, and could not help but ask Qingqi. Qingqi knew far more about Donghuang Jingrong than the other Starry Sky Envoys and Starry Sky Lord. Moreover, he was not good at martial arts but at formations. Hence, Nietion guessed that Xiao Chen's position among the star venerates should be rather special. The primeval galaxy is a mysterious former ancient sacred world. I've never been there before. I've only heard about it from Big Brother Donghuang once or twice. Qingqi's eyes darkened as he said, "The environment there is very harsh. Ordinary sky martial sacred ancestor powerhouses can't survive there. Nietion, with your current strength there's no way to get there." "I understand." Nietion nodded silently. Of course, he understood the warning in Qingqi's words. However, he would never give up on the 9th-level Chaos Beast. He had to get it back. "Nietion, what is the power that ultimate martial took from you?" The Scarlet Life Dan Hart looked at Nietion and could not help but ask. He had seen a 9th-level Chaos Beast before, but he could not figure out what kind of power it was. However, every time a 9 extreme Chaos Beast appeared, he would feel an inexplicable sense of unease. He felt a strong sense of threat. "I don't know either." Nietion shook his head and said, "I only know that it's called the 9th-level Chaos Beast. It should be related to the 9 initial seals that you speak of." "Related to the 9 initial seals?" When the Scarlet Life Dan Hart and Qingqi heard Nietion's words, their faces changed, and they exclaimed, "Yes." Nietion nodded. In fact, he had heard this from Mori Shire. Mori Shire's understanding of the 9 initial seals and the 9th-level Chaos Beast was undoubtedly much more than his. Hayakuten took away your 9th-level Chaos Beast, but he ignored the 9 initial seals. This is obviously illogical. Qingqi frowned and said, "If the 9th-level Chaos Beast is useful to him, then the 9 initial seals should be useful to him too. But why did he only take away the 9th-level Chaos Beast?" "I feel that Hayakuten did not take away the 9th-level Chaos Beast because it was useful to him. He wanted to hurt Nietion," the Scarlet Life Dan Hart said in a deep voice. "That is also possible." Qingqi nodded. After all, Hayakuten was Donghuang Jingrong's mortal enemy. It was normal for him to see the new Star Sky sacred leader as an enemy. The reason why Hayakuten did not kill Nietion was that he felt that Nietion was not strong enough. It would not be interesting to kill him. It would not be too late to kill him when Nietion grew strong enough to fight him. "Seniors, if Hayakuten is so strong, why does he always stay in the primordial galaxy and rarely appear in the sacred world?" Nietion frowned and asked in confusion. Qingqi and Qingqi shook their heads. Back then, Hayakuten had been working hard to defeat Donghuang Jingrong and had the intention to destroy the world. But after Donghuang Jingrong fell, he hid in the primordial galaxy and rarely appeared. This time, Hayakuten appeared. On the surface, it seemed that he had taken away Nietion's 9th-level Chaos Beast. But thinking about it carefully, he had helped Nietion. Without Hayakuten, Nietion would definitely fall into the hands of Daikarma Ruins and Nmo Liyuan. By then, it would not be a matter of losing a 9th-level Chaos Beast. Strangely, although the 9th-level Chaos Beast had been taken away, Nietion did not feel anything strange. His martial body and power were not damaged. In fact, they were even stronger than before. Now that he had lost the 9th-level Chaos Beast, he was safe. At least Yuan Huygens people would not bother him anymore. In addition, Daikarma Ruins had been dragged into the primordial galaxy. He did not need to be careful with the Dragon Farmer energy. Chapter 4135. Nietion, what are you thinking about? Qingqi couldn't help but ask when he saw Nietion's strange expression. Nothing. Nietion shook his head with a smile and didn't say much. At least in his opinion, the current Hyakuten was a friend or foe, and he didn't feel any killing intent from Hyakuten. Then, Nye Tian and the other two said a few more words, and Qing Chi opened the barrier. At this time, everyone had calmed down a lot, and everyone's face was filled with joy after surviving a disaster. However, although everyone's lives were saved, vast Cloud Sacred City was completely destroyed. The entire city was razed to the ground and turned into ruins. Originally, the 10,000 yuan pavilion was intact, but after the defensive array was stripped away, it was instantly destroyed. Senior Qing Chi, it seems that your 10,000 yuan pavilion will have to choose a new city. Nye Tian looked at Qing Chi and smiled bitterly. Forget it, this old man will follow the sacred master from now on. Qing Chi laughed, but his eyes were filled with incomparable determination. All right. Nye Tian was naturally happy. With Qing Chi by his side, many things would be much simpler. Next, the 5 deans calmed everyone's emotions and began to disperse the crowd. They let those who had passed the 5 academies test report to the everlasting Sacred World's Cloud Extreme City 1 month later. After a while, the crowd was almost gone, and those who originally lived in Vast Cloud Sacred City also left. Vast Cloud Sacred City, one of the main cities of the Southern Brilliance Sacred World, became history. Mr. Qing Chi, Martial Sky President, we have something to talk to Nye Tian. Can the two of you leave for a while? At this time, Zhuge Qiyun and the other 4 deans walked over together, wanting to talk to Nye Tian alone. Scarlet Life Loyal Heart frowned, obviously not wanting to leave, but Qing Chi smiled and said, "Of course." Then, Qing Chi directly pulled the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart and retreated thousands of meters away. Zhuge Qiyun raised his hand slightly, and suddenly a barrier was formed, isolating him from Nye Tian and the others. It was obvious that he didn't want anyone else to know about this conversation. Nye Tian, you're a smart man. There are some things I'll be straightforward with you. With a gloomy face, Zhuge Qiyun stared at Nye Tian with eyes as sharp as a knife and said, "You are the martial Kue of the 5 academies this time. According to the previous decision of the 5 academies, the 9 seals should be handed over to you for safekeeping. But you are too weak now." He was powerless to protect the first 9 seals. Therefore, the first primordial 9 seals are still guarded by the 5 academies. Nye Tian frowned and the corner of his mouth twitched a few times. After what happened just now, the 5 academies still refused to give up on the 9 seals of first primordial spirit. Although the Yang God Sword Emperor said that the first origin 9 seals would be kept by Nye Tian, the 5 academies did not change their minds. Instead, they were even more determined. Actually, this was not strange. The Yang God Sword Emperor and the renegade demon Li Yuan had both been dragged into the primordial cosmos, so they would not be able to return to the All Heavens Saints world for some time. As a result, the 9 seals were instead safe. The 5 academies' original plan was to eliminate the potential threat behind the 9 seals of first origin. Now that the threat had been eliminated, they obviously would not let it go so easily. Nye Tian glanced at the 5 deans. All of them had gloomy expressions. Clearly, they were not here to negotiate with him. "Looks like I have no other choice, right?" Nye Tian smiled bitterly and said helplessly, "Since the 5 academies are not afraid of being accused of going back on their words, I'm obviously fine with it. Young man, the 9 seals of first origin do not belong to you in the first place. It's enough for you to be the martial Kue of the 5 academies. Don't push your luck," Martial Dragon Academy's Dean Bing Feiqiu said coldly. Zhuge Qiyun was a little more polite and said, "Nye Tian, you can make other requests. The 5 academies will agree to them." "Really?" The corner of Nye Tian's mouth twitched. His gaze toward Zhuge Qiyun became slightly heated. He smiled and said, "Patriarch Zhuge, I really do have a small request. I wonder if the 5 academies are willing to help me?" Zhuge Qiyun knew he was in the wrong, so he appeared very magnanimous and said, "As long as it's within the 5 academies' capabilities, we will definitely not decline. I want to borrow something from someone through the 5 academies. The corner of Nye Tian's mouth twitched, and the passion in his eyes became even more obvious. What is it? Zhuge Qiyun and the others exclaimed in surprise when they heard Nye Tian's words. If they helped Nye Tian would not be able to say anything to the public. This way, the 5 academies' reputation could be preserved. I want to borrow the angel race's blood angel wings. Nye Tian glanced at the 5 of them and said calmly, Angel blood angel wings. The 5 of them were stunned when they heard the 4 words, and they exclaimed in unison. They originally thought that Nye Tian would make a request that was neither too big nor too small. They did not expect that Nye Tian wanted to borrow the angel race's supreme sacred item. Although the angel blood angel wings were not comparable to the 9 seals of origin, it was almost impossible to borrow it. The angel blood angel wings were the angel race's supreme item. How could they borrow it from outsiders? Although the 5 academies' joint forces were stronger than the angel race, they could not destroy the angel race just because of Nye Tian's request. The small request that Nye Tian made was really too difficult. Kid, are you deliberately making fun of us? After a while, the blood wings Dean Xingguang Mushue's eyes changed. He spoke cold, and there was a faint murderous intent surging from his body. Do I look like I'm making fun of you? Nye Tian's eyes darkened, and he was not afraid at all. Xingguang Mushue's face was gloomy. He wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Zhuge Qiyun, who said, Nye Tian, your request is too difficult. The 5 academies can't agree to it. Ask for another one. Principal Zhuge, I only have this one request. If the 5 academies can't agree to it, then I can only tell others that the 5 academies didn't keep their promise and robbed me of the 9 seals of origin. Nye Tian smiled faintly, and he looked like he did not care. Kid, who do you think you are? How dare you threaten the 5 academies? The coldness in Xingguang Mushue's eyes intensified, and his murderous intent was obvious. Are you going to kill me? Nye Tian laughed, and his face was full of provocation. Do you think we don't dare? Xingguang Mushue's body surged with a layer of strange light. As long as he thought about it, he could directly kill Nye Tian. Bloodwing Dean, please calm down. Zhuge Qiyun's face sank and he roared, and fiercely stared at the holy light martial intent. At this time, Nye Tian was already the martial chief of the 5 academies. Killing him would greatly damage the reputation of the 5 academies. Moreover, Nye Tian's identity was not trivial. Just now, Zhuge Qiyun clearly saw the attitude of Qing Qi and Scarlet Life Loyal Heart in front of Nye Tian. Qing Qi and Scarlet Life Loyal Heart were extremely famous people in the All Heavens sacred world. But they were respectful to Nye Tian, which showed that Nye Tian's identity was high. Moreover, there were many mysterious powerhouses that appeared around Nye Tian before. Obviously, they were secretly protecting him. Therefore, Zhuge Qiyun estimated that the true identity of Nye Tian was absolutely amazing. If Nye Tian really died in their hands, the force behind Nye Tian would not let it go. The 5 academies' face was a small matter. If it caused a turmoil in the All Heavens sacred world, it would be troublesome. Xingguang Mushue looked at Zhuge Qiyun, and finally suppressed his anger, and took a step back. Chapter 41-36. Zhuge Qiyun could feel the determination in Nye Tian's eyes. He could faintly sense the aura coming from Nye Tian's body, which made his heart tremble. At this moment, he felt that the martial artist standing in front of him was no longer the great sage of Tianyi, but a godlike existence. Zhuge Qiyun's momentary absent-mindedness puzzled the other 4 deans. I promise you. After that, Zhuge Qiyun calmed down and spoke in a low voice. His expression revealed a strand of seriousness. Zhuge Qiyun, I'm afraid this isn't appropriate. The others looked at Zhuge Qiyun at the same time. They were a little flustered. They didn't expect him to agree to Nye Tian's request. The angel's blood wings were a sacred item. Why would the angel clan lend them to outsiders? Don't tell me that the 5 academies are really going to turn on the angels for Nyetian? Everyone, I think you know better than me what the 9 seals of origin means. Zhuge Qian glanced at the 4 of them and said, the 9 seals of origin must not be lost. The 5 colleges can't afford this risk. This. The 4 of them froze and didn't know how to respond. The 9 seals of origin must not be lost, but the angel's blood wings were no small matter. Zhuge Qian's eyes darkened as he looked at Xingguang Muxue and said, Blood Wings Dean, you are from the Angel Clan. Your college has a close relationship with the Angel Clan. You also have a high status in the Angel Clan. Please inform the Emperor of the Angel Clan about this. Okay. Xingguang Mushue's expression was ugly, but he still nodded and said, I will inform the Emperor first and explain the seriousness of the matter. I will inform you when there is news. Is 3 days enough? Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly as he looked at Xingguang Muxue and asked. 3 days. Xingguang Mushue's expression sank as he spoke in a cold tone. Nie Tian, what is your blood angel wings? Do you think I can borrow them just because I want to? Zhuge Qian frowned and said, Nie Tian, the angel's blood wings are no small matter. After the angel race learns of the situation, they will definitely gather the higher-ups of the various races for a discussion. 3 days is definitely not enough. 5 days at most. I can't wait that long, Nie Tian said with a cold and solemn expression. You. Xingguang Mushue's face was full of anger, but he had nowhere to vent it. He wished he could skin Nie Tian alive. Although he was a member of the angel race, this matter was related to the angel race's sacred relic. Once he spoke up and the angel race reacted strongly, he might even be treated as a traitor of the angel race. However, Nie Tian wanted him to settle it within 5 days. How could he not be angry? Bloodwings Dean, don't be angry. I think since Nie Tian insisted on 5 days, the situation must be urgent. You should try your best. Zhuge Qian waved his hand, indicating for Xingguang Muxue to calm down. This. Xingguang Mushue's expression was difficult. 5 days was indeed too tight. Master Zhuge, please open the barrier. At this time, Nie Tian thought for a moment and said indifferently. Zhuge Qian didn't know what to do, but he still opened the barrier. Nie Tian smiled faintly. He turned to look at a figure not far away and shouted, Lord Huar, come over. That person had clearly been waiting for a long time. When he heard Nie Tian's call, his figure immediately moved and came to Nie Tian's side. He was none other than the vast cloud sacred city's city lord who had a shocking bet with Nie Tian, Huadongtai. Back then, Nie Tian and Huadongtai made a grand bet. If Nie Tian took down the 5 academies' martial chief, Huadongtai would have to be loyal to him. But if Nie Tian failed to take down the 5 academies' martial chief, he would have to give the angel sacred token to Huadongtai. At that time, Huadongtai readily agreed because he felt that it was impossible for Nie Tian to take down the 5 academies' martial chief. But now Nie Tian was already the 5 academies' martial chief and won this shocking bet. The reason why Huadongtai hadn't left after Vast Cloud Sacred City had been destroyed was that he had been waiting for Nie Tian. He was a man of his word. If he lost, he had to admit it. Moreover, more importantly, he witnessed Nie Tian's rise with his own eyes. He felt that Nie Tian was a person worth following. Huadongtai, what are you doing here? Xingguang Muxue and Huadongtai were both members of the Angel Clan. Clearly, he knew the latter. His face fell as he asked. Lord High Elder, I and Lord Nie Tian have some matters to deal with. Huadongtai's expression was somewhat ugly, but he still said respectfully. Lord. Xingguang Mushue's face fell once more and he said with a cold smile, A mere heaven's justice great lord is also worthy of being called lord? He was one of the 9 great high elders of the Angel Clan. Hence, Huadongtai addressed him as Lord High Elder. But what virtue or ability did Nie Tian have to actually become a lord as well? Huadongtai's expression became even uglier. He glanced at Nie Tian and did not know how to respond to Xingguang Muxue. City Governor Hua, hand over the token. Nie Tian did not seem to mind. He smiled and extended his hand. Yes. Hua Dongtai nodded and handed over the angel's sacred token with both hands. Previously, after Nie Tian made a bet with him, he handed the angel's sacred token to him. Hua Dongtai thought that the angel's sacred token was in his hands. He did not expect that he would still have to hand it over. The angel's sacred token. Xingguang Muxue saw the token in Hua Dongtai's hand and his expression changed. He exclaimed, Hua Dongtai, why do you have the angel's sacred token? This is mine. Before Hua Dongtai could speak, Nie Tian smiled and said, Yours? Xingguang Muxue's face sank. He said in a cold voice, That's impossible. The angel's sacred token was the supreme token of the angel clan. It represented the supreme authority of the angel clan. There were only 9 angels' sacred tokens in the entire angel clan. Even though he was a supreme elder, he was not qualified to have the angel's sacred token. Nie Tian was an outsider. How could he say that the angel's sacred token was his? I am acquainted with Lady Lan Xuanyi of the Holy Feather Clan. The angel's sacred token was given to me by her. Nie Tian looked at Xingguang Muxue and said lightly, Your Highness Saintess. Xingguang Muxue's eyes trembled and he cried out in shock. Nie Tian actually knew the angel clan's Saintess. This was something he never expected. What is your relationship with Her Highness Saintess? Xingguang Muxue's eyes sank and he asked in a deep voice. This is not something you should be concerned about. Nie Tian's face was cold. He then handed over the angel's sacred token and said, Take the angel's sacred token. It should be able to help you. Xingguang Muxue's expression froze. He suppressed the anger in his eyes, but he still accepted the angel's sacred token. Supreme Elder, please inform the Emperor that in 5 days, I will visit the angel clan with several deans. Nie Tian nodded slightly and said in an unquestionable tone. You. Xingguang Muxue's face sank. Nie Tian was clearly going to bring Zhuge Qiyun and the others to force the angel clan. Dean Shui, just tell it to the Emperor. Zhuge Qiyun's eyes narrowed slightly and he said in a deep voice. He was a little surprised that Nie Tian was so domineering. Chapter 41-37. Nie Tian was taken aback for a moment, then he smiled and said, Supreme Elder, if the angel clan is willing to lend me the angel Bloodwings, of course I will enter Bloodwing Academy. He did not expect that Xingguang Muxue would still want him to join Bloodwing Academy at this time. Yeah. Xingguang Muxue nodded her head, and the tense expression on her face eased a little. He was not a fool. Of course he could see how terrifying Nie Tian was. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Nie Tian's potential was even more terrifying than Zhu Xi, the head of the hidden heavens. If such a person were to enter the Bloodwing Academy and be nurtured in the future, he would definitely greatly strengthen the reputation of the Bloodwing Academy after he matured. Zhuge Qiyun and the other 3 had ugly expressions. They originally wanted to rope in Nie Tian, but Xingguang Muxue had spoken in advance. Moreover, the matter of the angel Bloodwings had made it inconvenient for them to say anything more. Everyone, this matter should not be delayed. I will take my leave now. Xingguang Muxue said goodbye to Zhuge Qiyun and the others, then directly left. I hope everything goes smoothly. Zhuge Qiyun looked at the place where Xingguang Muxue's figure disappeared. He couldn't help but worry. He had already promised Nie Tian, so this matter must be successful. If the angel clan reacted strongly and insisted on not lending the angel Bloodwings, he would inevitably have to use forceful means. He did not want that to happen. Then, Zhuge Qiyun and the others agreed to meet up with Nie Tian in Jade City, which was the closest city to this place, in 5 days. Then, they would go to visit the angels together. After Zhuge Qiyun and the others left, Qing Qi and Scarlet Life Loyal Heart came over. Nie Tian, what did they say to you? Scarlet Life Loyal Heart looked at Nye Tian and asked curiously. Nye Tian recounted the conversation just now. Scarlet Life Loyal Heart and Qing Qi both felt that it was inconceivable. They didn't expect that the 5 academies would agree to lend the Angel's blood wings to Nye Tian in order to protect the 9 seals of First Primordial. What if the Angels don't want to lend me the Angel blood wings? Scarlet Life Pill thought for a bit and couldn't help but worry. I believe that since Mansion Headjuga dared to make a promise to me, you must have some confidence. Nye Tian smiled faintly and looked calm. If the Angels did not lend him the Angel blood wings, that was something that the 5 academies should worry about. It had nothing to do with him. I hope the Emperor of the Angel race doesn't react too much. Qing Qi was also worried. If the Angel race's attitude was firm, the 5 academies might really take extreme measures. Senior Qing Qi, what are the 9 initial seals? Why are the 5 academies unwilling to hand them over? At this time, Nye Tian could not help but frown and ask with a puzzled expression. The 5 academies would rather take the risk of fighting the Angel clan than hand over the first origin 9 seals. This made Nye Tian feel very strange. Qing Qi's eyes trembled slightly. He hesitated for a bit, but he still said, "Rumor has it that the 9 initial seals were born when the world was created. They were 9 powerful seals that naturally appeared in the world. The 9 initial seals contain the origin energy of the 9 primes. They are the foundation of this world." Origin power? Nye Tian went blank for a moment before asking, "Do you mean the 9 origins?" Before coming to the Saints' world, he already knew about the 9 great origins. However, the strange thing was that the cultivators of the Saints' world did not seem interested in the 9 great origins. "Looks like you already know about the 9 great origins." Qing Qi laughed and said, "The scarlet gold light, the heart of all wood, the source of weak water, the essence of leaf fire, the vein of the earth, the peak of storms, the 9 roars of purple lightning, the beginning world of light and the dark abyss. These 9 powers are called the 9 great origins." With that, he looked at Nye Tian and his eyes trembled slightly. He said, "Actually, I can sense the origin energy in your body. However, it is only an extremely weak origin energy. It cannot be considered true origin energy." "What do you mean?" Nye Tian was stunned and puzzled. The 9 great origins originate from the power of the 9 initial seals. They are also the power that supports a world. Qing Qi smiled faintly and said, "Any world, be it the Saints' world, realms, or planes of existence, all have a certain amount of origin energy. The 9 great origins are the foundation that supports a world. Just like time and space. The origin energy you fused with is just the scattered origin energy that floats in the world. Just like the world we are in right now, it is also distributed with origin energy." With that, he reached out his hand and grabbed at the void. Then, he opened his palm and an extremely small speck of light appeared in his hand. Terra Vein Source. Nye Tian's eyes couldn't help but tremble when he felt the aura of the speck of light. He didn't dare to believe that Qing Qi could grab a bit of Terra Vein Source with a casual grab. In other words, the power of the vein of the earth. Although the Terra Vein Source in Qing Qi's hand was very small, Nye Tian was very sure that it was the power of the vein of the earth. Nye Tian had fused with the Terra Vein Source before, so he was very familiar with this kind of power. Yes, this is the vein of the earth. Qing Qi flicked his finger lightly and the Terra Vein Source disappeared into the air. He said, "The Terra Vein Source you fused with is actually the power of the vein of the earth that floats in the air and hasn't completely dispersed. This power is of great help to the warriors of the realms and planes of existence. But for the Saint Realm warriors, it doesn't have much of an effect. Moreover, it is very difficult to fuse and it wastes time and energy. Therefore, the Saint Realm warriors don't care about the 9 great origins." "So that's how it is." Nye Tian's eyes trembled as he understood a lot. It seemed that the martial arts knowledge he had learned in the realms and planes of existence was not completely applicable in the saint's world. The power of the 9 great origins is certainly very strong, but the power of the origins scattered in the air is only a very small part. It can't even be regarded as the real power of the origin. Qing-Chi continued, the real power of the origin is contained in the 9 seals of origin. Nie Tian's eyes flickered, and he vaguely understood why the 5 academies did not let go of the 9 seals of origin. The 9 seals of origin was the root of the world, and the power contained in it was the foundation of the entire world. Senior Qing-Chi, since the 5 academies already have the 9 seals of origin, why don't they use it? Then, Nie Tian said doubtfully, if they absorb the power of the 9 seals of origin, won't they be able to surpass their own limits? Qing-Chi and the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart looked at Nie Tian and couldn't help but laugh. Things are not that simple. The power of the 9 seals of origin is not something that can be absorbed so easily. I guess the 5 academies have mastered the 9 seals of origin for so long, but they still haven't found the way to open the 9 seals. Chapter 41-38. Nie Tian nodded slightly, his eyes revealing a touch of passion. Of course, he understood that the breakthrough that Qing-Chi mentioned was not an ordinary breakthrough, but a breakthrough above the sky martial saint ancestor, at least a breakthrough in the current martial Dao realm. At this time, he could not help but look forward to seeing what the legendary 9 seals of first origin was like. Next, Nie Tian bid farewell to the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart, who took Yu Jingchen away. Qing-Chi and Huadongtai headed to Stone Jade City with Nie Tian and the others. Stone Jade City was not far from Vast Cloud Sacred City, so Nie Tian and the others quickly arrived outside the city. Stone Jade City was only a third-rate small city, and it was far from being comparable to Vast Cloud Sacred City. But it was still considered prosperous, and the city was bustling with activity. People came and went, and it was very lively. Vast Cloud Sacred City was destroyed, and many people came to Stone Jade City first. Qing-Chi brought Nie Tian and the others to the branch of 10,000 Yuan Pavilion and arranged for everyone to stay. After a series of battles in the Hidden Dragon struggle, coupled with the arrival of the Yang God Sword Emperor and the others, Nie Tian could not help but feel a little tired and needed a good rest. Qing-Chi was a little worried about Nie Tian. He checked the latter's martial body again and confirmed that there was no abnormality, then he was slightly relieved. In the room, Nie Tian sat cross-legged and began to look at his martial body. He was originally seriously injured, and the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast was taken away, which caused great damage to his martial body. However, at this time, he found that everything was normal in his martial body, and even his aura was stronger than before. It seems that Senior Qing-Chi was right. The origin power I fused with is not the real origin power, but some scattered power floating in the void. A moment later, he discovered that he could no longer feel the earth vein source and other powers in his body. It seemed that they had completely merged with his martial body. It seemed that they had completely fused with the martial body. Moreover, he also had a shocking discovery. The various powers of his power seemed to have a tendency to fuse together. The power of the dragon vein, the power of the gods and demons, the power of the stars, and even the power of the heavenly Tao shackles, as well as the power of the supreme double seal of the 3 life race, all had a tendency to gradually fuse together. However, it was only a trend at the moment. These powers had not completely fused together. At this moment, the power of 9,000 demons and gods in Nie Tian's body had completely awakened. However, he felt that he was still unable to fully unleash the power of 9,000 demons and gods. His 9 extremities war god art had already been cultivated to the 9th level, the extreme twilight heavenly realm. The 9th level of the extreme twilight heavenly realm did not improve Nie Tian's martial body by much. Instead, it gave him a feeling of being restricted. Perhaps it was because the 9 extremities war god art was only at the high divine level. At the same time, his life chart had been cultivated to the peak of life will, showing signs of breaking through to life image. The most direct effect of raising his life providence realm was to make Nye Tian's martial body stronger. At this time, Nye Tian was at the 4th level of heavenly justice, but the strength of his martial body was already close to that of a peak heavenly tribulation holy king. In the next few days, Nye Tian continued to cultivate. When his martial body had more or less recovered, he tried to absorb the glory of the ancestral dragon on the Book of Ancestral Dragon. The glory of the ancestral dragon was the power left behind by generations of ancestral dragon martial artists. After absorbing it, not only would it greatly improve Nye Tian's dragon vein, but it could also help him conceal the chi of the dragon farmer. Although the imperial Karma ruins had been dragged into the primordial starry sky, its subordinates were still there. Just in case, it was better for Nye Tian to be cautious. 5 days later, Nye Tian had more or less recovered and walked out of the room. Nye Tian, you're even more advanced than a few days ago. Qing Qi saw Nye Tian and could not help but exclaim when he sensed the aura on the ladder. In a few days, I should be able to break through to the 5th level of heavenly justice, Nye Tian said with a smile and nodded. He had absorbed some glory of the ancestral dragon, and the aura in his body was vigorous. He was almost able to break through to the 5th level of heavenly justice. This guy is simply abnormal. Huadongtai looked at Nye Tian and could not help but say in his heart. For others, breaking through was extremely difficult, but for Nye Tian, it was as easy as eating and drinking. Nye Tian, I have already sent people to guard outside the city gate. Once Zhuge family head and the others arrive, we can leave. Qing Qi knew what Nye Tian was thinking and said directly. All right. Nye Tian smiled faintly and his heart was much more at ease. He had already checked on Cher's condition, and she was currently in a stable condition. Rui Qianyu should be waking up soon. He hoped that there would not be too much of a commotion. Senior Qing Qi, I hope that you can come with me this time to visit the Angel Clan. Nye Tian looked at Qing Qi and said in a deep voice. Nye Tian, it is not convenient for me to intervene in the affairs of the Angel Clan. With the pressure from the 5 academies, the Angel Clan will definitely take it seriously. If they really want to reject us, it would be useless even if I followed. Qing Qi shook his head and said. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not expect Qing Qi to reject him. Nye Tian, I have to deal with the matters of the Wan Yuan Pavilion. When I am done, I will look for you. Qing Qi smiled faintly and said. All right. Nye Tian nodded his head. In fact, Qing Qi was right. If the Angel Clan really wanted to resist, it would be useless even with the help of the Wan Yuan Pavilion. After a while, a warrior of the Wan Yuan Pavilion appeared and said respectfully, Pavilion leader, the 4 deans have arrived. They are waiting outside the city. Nye Tian, you guys go ahead. I will not accompany you. Qing Qi smiled faintly and did not intend to send Nye Tian and the others off. Nye Tian nodded his head and left with Huadongtai and the others. Very soon, they arrived outside the city. As expected, Zhuge Kayun and the others were already waiting for them. Nye Tian, let's go. Zhuge Kayun did not waste any time and said directly when he saw Nye Tian arrive. Following that, the group headed to the nearest net of the Holy World and then to the City of Angels where the Angel Clan was located. Half a day later, Nye Tian and the others arrived at the legendary City of Angels. Nye Tian, this is the holy city of the Angel Clan, the City of Angels. Zhuge Kayun looked at the City of Angels before him and said loudly, It has been hundreds of thousands of years since I left the City of Angels. However, this city has not changed at all. Nye Tian looked at the City of Angels before him and could not help but tremble with excitement. He was extremely shocked. The entire City of Angels was bathed in holy light. It seemed sacred and dignified, making people feel relaxed and happy. The City of Angels was a little different from other huge cities. The city walls were not tall. Standing outside the city, one could clearly see the huge buildings in the city. There were many palaces in the city. All of them shone with a holy light and looked extremely piercing. There were 3 buildings that caught Nye Tian's attention. The first was a huge white stone pillar that was hundreds of thousands of meters tall. From afar, it looked like a pillar that supported the heavens. There were many angels with spread wings carved on the stone pillar, giving off the feeling that they were about to take flight. Chapter 4139. Nye Tian stared at the 3 buildings in a daze for a long time. "Boss, why does that statue look weird? It doesn't seem to belong to this city." Xie Tianquang couldn't help but point at the demonic statue and say. He also noticed that the demonic statue didn't seem to fit in and was curious. "It's a little strange." Nye Tian's lips twitched. He glanced at Zhuge Qiyun and the others and said with a smile, "Deans, do you know what's up with this statue?" Zhuge Qiyun laughed and said, "This demonic statue is called Demon God Qi. It's rumored to be the archenemy of the angels. As for why the city of angels has a statue of Demon God Qi, I'm not sure." Then, he looked at Hua Dongtai and said with a smile, "City Lord Hua is from the angel race. Maybe he can answer our questions." "Deans, this is a taboo of the angel race. Forgive me for not being able to say more." Hua Dongtai looked like he didn't want to say more. "Then let's enter the city." Nye Tian didn't force the issue and said with a faint smile. The group soon arrived at the city gate and saw a few gray-robed angel warriors guarding a small gate. They were as still as statues. Nye Tian saw that the gate was only 1 meter wide and 2 meters tall. It could only allow one person to pass through easily. Moreover, this gate was different from the others. It was a liquid gate that looked like a flowing waterfall. At the same time, it released a halo that made people feel very comfortable. "Nye Tian, this is the angel race's angel gate. It's also called the Gate of Baptism." Zhuge Qiyun saw the confusion in Nye Tian's eyes. He smiled and said, "Anyone who enters the city of angels has to pass through the angel gate first. It's called the Baptism of Holy Light." Baptism of Holy Light. Nye Tian's eyes flickered. He found it interesting. "Lord Nye Tian, the angel gate has the effect of cleansing souls." Hua Dongtai looked at Nye Tian with an excited expression. "If you're a kind-hearted person, you'll be able to absorb the angelic light in the angel gate, which will strengthen your martial body to a certain extent. When you pass through the angel's gate, the slaughter chi in your body will be cleansed by the angel's gate. The process is extremely painful. How could such a small door have such a miraculous effect?" Nye Tian couldn't help feeling curious. He took a step forward, eager to test it out. "Boss, let me go first." However, Xie Tianquang was even more anxious. He took a step forward and charged into the angel gate. Nye Tian's eyes trembled. He opened his demonic eye in an attempt to get a clear look at Xie Tianquang. However, he couldn't see through him. He could only see a flowing halo and couldn't see Xie Tianquang's figure at all. At the same time, he realized that there was a faint halo barrier around the angel gate. It seemed to be some kind of restriction. "Lord Nye Tian, the angel gate can only accommodate one person. You have to wait for Brother Quang to walk out before you can enter," Hua Dongtai explained to Nye Tian with a faint smile. Nye Tian nodded. He wasn't in a hurry. After a while, the halo barrier around the angel gate disappeared. It seemed that Xie Tianquang had entered the city. Following that, Jun Jianxing entered. He took about half a minute, just like Xie Tianquang. These 2 guys are insane. They can actually last half a minute in the angel gate. Hua Dongtai was secretly shocked by Xie Tianquang and Jun Jianxing's talent. He knew that in the angel gate, whether a martial artist was kind or vicious, the more talented they were, the longer they could stay in the angel gate. Under normal circumstances, martial artists from the angel race would take about 10 seconds to pass through the angel gate. Martial artists from other races would only take 3 to 5 seconds to pass through the angel gate. Xie Tianquang and Jun Jianxing could last half a minute. They were definitely top-notch geniuses. Even among the angel race, it was rare. I wonder how long Lord Nie Tian can last? Following that, Dongtai couldn't help but look at Nie Tian. He was curious as to how long Nie Tian could last in the Angel Gate. He knew that Nie Tian's talent was more terrifying than Xie Tianquang and Jun Jianxing. Therefore, he guessed that Nie Tian could last for about a minute. After all, the record for martial artists from other races to last in the Angel Gate was only 2 minutes. It couldn't be denied that Nie Tian was an unparalleled talent. However, he was still a distance away from the person who created the record. At least in Dongtai's eyes, Nie Tian was a far cry from that legendary martial artist. "I'm going in." Nie Tian smiled faintly and stepped into the Angel Gate. Dongtai, Zhuge Qiyun, and the rest were slightly startled. They were looking forward to seeing how long Nie Tian could last. The moment Nie Tian stepped into the Angel Gate, his soul couldn't help but tremble. It was as though he had arrived in a whole new world. His surroundings were vast and boundless. It was as though he was in an endless world. Pure and holy light flowed in the space. Apart from that, there was nothing else. At that moment, Nie Tian felt rays of light surging into his body. His expression changed as he exclaimed in surprise. Boom! Following that, these rays of light turned into rays of terrifying energy. Like a surging river, they flowed through his bones and meridians, giving him an indescribable sense of comfort. However, at the same time, he felt a burning pain. It was as if he was being stabbed by needles. It made him uncomfortable, but he could still endure it. So this is the baptism of the holy light? Nie Tian calmed down and his lips curled up into a smile. Just now, Dongtai had mentioned that the angel's holy light could strengthen a cultivator's physique. At the same time, it could cleanse a cultivator's killer's chi. It was true. Following that, as more and more light poured into him, Nie Tian felt the power in his body grow stronger and stronger. His bones, meridians, flesh, and blood were all being strengthened. Coupled with the burning pain from the baptism, he felt as if he had been reborn from the ashes. "I can borrow the power of the angel's holy light and make a small breakthrough." Nie Tian's eyes flickered. Then, he sat down in a lotus position and prepared to break through to the 5th level of Tianyi. Ah! Just then, he suddenly shrieked and jumped up from the ground. He stared at his palm in shock. On his palm, a cluster of talismans appeared and began to expand little by little. On his palm, circles of black marks appeared, as if his flesh was being burnt. The seal of prophecy is about to break. Nie Tian's eyes were shaking as he screamed out loud. An excruciating pain shot through his entire body, and he found it a little unbearable. But the pain wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that if the seal of prophecy was activated, it would devour him. Chapter 4140. The Child of Prophecy. Nie Tian sensed the change in the holy seal of prophecy. His face darkened and his nerves tightened. If the Child of Prophecy appeared now, then the holy seal of prophecy would be activated. That would be his doom. Go back. His first reaction was to return and leave the city of angels first. But when he wanted to retreat, he was shocked to find that he couldn't do it. In the void around him, there was a terrifying force pushing against him, forcing him to move forward and not retreat. Nie Tian, calm down. At this moment, Fat Cat's voice sounded. The holy seal of prophecy has changed. It might not necessarily be the appearance of the child of prophecy. Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes as he forced himself to calm down. He looked at his palm. The dense runes were constantly spreading out, unfolding layer by layer, forming dark ripple-like marks on his palm. Moreover, those dark marks were constantly expanding, extending from his palm to his wrist and arm. This power can't be controlled at all. Nie Tian was shocked. He wanted to stop the spreading of the dark marks, but it was useless. The dark marks seemed to be unobstructed by any external force and were spreading rapidly. At the same time, outside the Angel's Gate, Huadongtai and the others were stunned. They looked at the Angel's Gate in a daze, unable to conceal the fear in their shock. As for the guards outside the Angel's Gate, they were all dumbfounded by what they saw. The Angel's Gate was shaking non-stop. The halo outside was vibrating and very unstable. The entire Angel's Gate gave off the feeling that it was about to collapse. The guards were pale with fright. They were clearly panicking. They had guarded the Angel's Gate for tens of thousands of years. Countless people had entered the Angel's Gate, but there had never been a situation like this. Huadongtai and the others were equally shocked. Nye Tian had already entered the Angel's Gate for 5 minutes, but the Angel's Gate was still closed. This meant that Nye Tian was still inside. But how was this possible? A foreign martial artist actually lasted 5 minutes inside the Angel Gate, directly breaking the record for foreign martial artists entering the Angel Gate. Furthermore, he more than doubled the record. He was already close to the record for Angel race martial artists entering the Angel Gate. Huadongtai originally thought that Nye Tian would only be able to hold on for a minute at most, but now it seemed that he had underestimated Nye Tian. The strangest thing was that after Nye Tian entered the Angel Gate, it began to shake. It became very unstable, as if it was showing signs of collapsing. As a member of the Angel clan, Huadongtai had some understanding of the Angel Gate. The Angel's Gate was created by the first-generation emperor of the Angel race. He took the blood rain from the Angel race's supreme holy land, poetic heaven, and then fused it with the bloodline power of the first-generation emperor and the first-generation 9 great Angel Kings Gate. It was refined by the most outstanding artificer in the history of the Angel race using prison-breaking flame. It was incomparably sturdy. Ben could not be destroyed. Therefore, Angel's Gate had another name, Eternal Gate. But now the Eternal Gate had become unstable. How was that possible? Huadongtai was shocked. His divine sense tried to sense the aura of the Angel's Gate. Separated by the barrier, he could faintly sense a violent energy attacking it, causing the space within the Angel's Gate to shake. Nye Tian, hurry up and come out of the Angel's Gate. He couldn't help feeling nervous. He was starting to worry about the Angel's Gate. If the Angel's Gate was destroyed because of Nye Tian, then this visit would undoubtedly become even more difficult. To the Angel race, although the Angel's Gate was not as important as the Angel Blood Wings, it was not much different. If the Angel's Gate was destroyed, it would definitely anger the Angel race. Inside the Angel's Gate, the dark scars on Nye Tian's palm had already spread to his entire arm. They were like little black snakes, coiling around his arm, causing his entire body to release an extremely strange aura. These dark scars are about to spread to my entire body. He endured the intense pain, the energy in his body surging, trying to stop the dark scars from spreading, but it was to no avail. Nye Tian, hurry up and get out of here. At this time, Fat Cat's voice rang out, calling out in a low voice. Nye Tian nodded, taking a step forward with great difficulty. His entire body felt like it was burning, the pain was incomparable. Since he could not retreat, he could only brace himself and walk out of the Angel's Gate. But the Angel's Gate did not seem to want him to leave. His feet felt like they were filled with heavy lead sand, every step was accompanied by a heart-wrenching pain. Step by step, he felt that he was getting closer and closer to the exit, but at the same time, his feet were becoming heavier and heavier. At the beginning, he only felt that his steps were heavy, but now he felt as if there was a giant mountain pressing down on his back, making him unable to lift his head. At the same time, the dark scars were still spreading, and had already spread to half of his body. Half of his face was normal, and the other half was covered in dark scars, looking extremely terrifying. Nye Tian, the seal of prophecy is slowly activating. If these dark scars cover your entire body, you're finished, Fat Cat said anxiously and loudly. I know. Nie Tian nodded, lifting his feet with great difficulty, and walked forward. When the dark scars covered his entire body, it would be the moment the seal of prophecy fully activates, and also the moment he would be swallowed by the seal. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Nie Tian felt that the exit was right in front of him, but after every step, he still could not walk out of the Angel's Gate. It was as if the Angel's Gate was playing with him. But he did not give up, enduring the intense pain of his body being torn apart. He walked forward. A moment later, the dark scars on his body had already spread to his entire body, only his right hand was still intact. Nie Tian, hurry up! Fat Cat's voice changed and she screamed shrilly. Nie Tian's body was trembling. He could feel every meridian in his body was tense. At the same time, outside the Angel's Gate, Huadongtai and the others were all stunned, looking at the Angel's Gate in horror. At this time, the Angel's Gate was shaking violently, and cracks had appeared on the flowing liquid. It was obvious that it was about to collapse. The few angel guards were scared out of their wits, their bodies drenched in cold sweat, but they did not know what to do. There was nothing they could do now, they could only watch helplessly. Bang! At this time, the Angel's Gate made a cracking sound, and then a huge crack appeared in the center, and it actually broke down from the middle. This! Huadongtai's eyes trembled, and his eyes froze in shock. He gasped, his heart in his throat. Was the so-called Eternal Angel's Gate really going to be destroyed? Chapter 41-41. Huadongtai's eyes quivered. His throat felt like it was blocked by a rock, making him stop breathing. He saw that the enormous crack on the Angel's Gate was currently expanding continuously. An incomparably mysterious aura was released, containing incomparably horrifying power. But right at this time, the void trembled. Then, the Angel's Gate's halo barrier disappeared. Following that, the Angel's Gate no longer swayed. The crack on it started to slowly mend, recovering to its original state in a blink of an eye. Everything returned to its original state, as if nothing had happened before. The few people who were dumbfounded, Zhuge Qiyun was the first to react, asking in a quivering voice, What's going on here? Go in first before talking. Huadongtai immediately reacted. Then, with a big stride, he directly stepped into the Angel's Gate. Zhuge Qiyun and the rest immediately reacted as well. When the halo barrier disappeared, they entered the Angel's Gate one by one. When Zhuge Qiyun entered the City of Angels, he was dumbfounded by the scene before him. In front of them stood thousands upon thousands of angel race martial artists, and in midair, similarly, there were one terrifying figure after another standing tall. These angel race martial artists directly surrounded them. Huadongtai stood on the spot, his expression incomparably nervous, while Nie Tian sat cross-legged on the ground, completely ignoring the lineup in front of him. Very clearly, these angel race martial artists were alarmed by the unforeseen event at the Angel's Gate and came over. At this time, everyone's gazes were focused on Nie Tian. But the latter just minded his own business and sat on the spot cultivating. The scene was deathly silent, incomparably stifling. After a moment, Nie Tian finally opened his eyes and slowly stood up. His aura was much stronger than before. His entire person emitted an even sharper aura. What was even stranger was that outside his body, there was a layer of incomparably pure and holy light circulating. Huadongtai was the first to discover the changes on Nie Tian's body. His eyes quivered with astonishment as he cried out in shock, unable to speak. The light of eternity! Almost at the same time, a thin old man stood up and exclaimed in shock. Eternal light! Immediately after, the other angels exclaimed in unison, their voices shocking the heavens. Zhuge Qiyun and the others were dumbfounded. They had no idea what was going on. However, they could sense that the layer of light around Nie Tian was extremely terrifying. It gave them the illusion that they couldn't break through it. Lord High Elder, Lord Nie Tian. In the next moment, Huadongtai recovered from his shock, and his eyes trembled as he looked at the gaunt old man. He seemed to be in extreme panic. "Someone, bring him back to Sacred Hall." Without waiting for Huadongtai to finish speaking, the old man cut him off and growled. "Yes." The two angel warriors answered and stepped forward, pressing down on Nye Tian. Zhuge Qian's heart sank, and he immediately stepped forward to block the two angel warriors. Then, he looked at the old man and said, "This High Elder, it seems inappropriate for you to capture him without any explanation. If you stop this elder, then you will be the enemy of my angel clan." The old man's face was gloomy. His eyes were like a pair of sharp blades, sweeping over Zhuge Qian and the others as he spoke in a cold voice. "Lord High Elder, we will follow you back to Sacred Hall." Zhuge Qian still wanted to say something, but Huadongtai beat him to it. Zhuge Qian frowned, glanced at Huadongtai, and didn't say anything. He couldn't understand why this angel clan's High Elder was so overbearing. It seemed that Nye Tian had violated some kind of taboo of the angel clan. Nye Tian glanced at Huadongtai, but didn't resist and left with the High Elder. Soon Nye Tian and the others arrived at the angel clan's supreme place, the Sacred Hall of Angels. The Sacred Hall of Angels stood on a huge pillar that connected to the heavens, like a floating palace in the sky. "Follow me, the others wait here," the High Elder said in a cold voice, and only brought Nye Tian into the Sacred Hall. Zhuge Qian and the others were obviously unhappy, but they were once again stopped by Huadongtai. "Lord Nye Tian, don't be nervous. In front of Lord Emperor, just speak the truth." Huadongtai looked at Nye Tian and nodded. Nye Tian nodded. He could tell that something unusual had happened to him, and it must have something to do with the layer of light around him. Following that, the High Elder led Nye Tian into the Sacred Hall. "City Lord Hua, what's going on? What happened?" Zhuge Qian's face darkened, and he asked in a deep voice. "Deans, this matter involves my angel clan's secret. Forgive me for not saying much." Huadongtai took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. Zhuge Qian and the others had ugly expressions on their faces, but they didn't pursue the matter. Sacred Hall of Angels. Nye Tian followed behind High Elder Qi Zhenxiong, feeling uneasy. A moment later, he arrived at the center of the Sacred Hall. From afar, he saw a martial artist wearing a phoenix crown and emperor's robe sitting on a throne. Although he was far away from that martial artist, he could feel the powerful aura exuding from his body. It was even stronger than that of Zhuge Qian and the others. This martial artist was none other than the current emperor of the Angel Clan, the only nine-winged supreme angel of the entire Angel Clan, Xingguang Huaiyu. On the left and right of Xingguang Huaiyu sat two domineering figures. Nye Tian recognized one of them. It was the Blood Wings Dean, Xingguang Muxue. The other three's auras were no weaker than Xingguang Muxue's, and they were extremely powerful. Nye Tian. Xingguang Muxue's eyes widened when he saw Nye Tian, and he cried out in surprise. He didn't expect Nye Tian to appear at this time. He had just mentioned the angel Blood Wings to Xingguang Huaiyu, and they hadn't come to a decision yet. It was just that the unusual vibration from Angel's Gate had alarmed Xingguang Huaiyu and the others, so they had sent Qi Zhenxiong to see what was going on. In the next instant, Xingguang Muxue realized what was going on, and she exclaimed in shock, "You're the one who caused the trembling of the Angel Gate?" The corner of Nye Tian's mouth twitched, and he nodded helplessly. Originally, he had only wanted to use the Angel's holy light to make a breakthrough. He didn't expect to cause such a huge commotion. He had almost lost his life at Angel's Gate. "Fifth Elder, is he the person you were talking about?" Xingguang Huaiyu spoke at this time. He slowly stood up, and suddenly, the entire sacred hall was illuminated by holy light. It was much brighter, and a solemn and dignified feeling was born. Xingguang Muxue nodded solemnly, and his expression was a little ugly. In the current Angel Clan, the highest position was still the Emperor, and below him were the 9 great elders. Xingguang Muxue was one of the 9 great elders and ranked 5th. That was why Xingguang Huaiyu called him 5th elder. Emperor. At this time, 9th elder Qi Zhenxiong opened his mouth and said solemnly, "He's the one who caused Angel's Gate to become unstable, and he also," as he spoke, Qi Zhenxiong gritted his teeth and looked at Nie Tian, as if he wanted to skin the latter alive. "What else?" Xingguang Huaiyu frowned, and his delicate face changed slightly. "He also obtained the eternal light." Qi Zhenxiong growled, and his words were like thunder, exploding in everyone's ears. Chapter 41-42. Eternal Light. These 4 simple words were like muffled thunder, causing everyone present to be stunned. Their expressions were sluggish, and they could not react for a long time. "9th elder, what did you say?" After a long time, Xingguang Huaiyu finally spoke. Her pair of eyes trembled and her beautiful eyes shone with a fierce light. The aura around her was somewhat restless, and the light in the hall became somewhat dazzling, revealing a restlessness. He obtained the eternal light. 9th elder Qi Zhenxiong's expression was very ugly as he spoke again. "That's impossible." Xingguang Huaiyu was stunned for a few seconds before she suddenly let out a strange cry. Her voice was extremely sharp and ear-piercing. Her eyes were trembling and her blood was restless. The aura around her was like a wild beast roaring. She never imagined that Nie Tian would actually obtain the eternal light. The eternal light represented the supreme power of the angel clan. How could it be obtained by a foreign warrior? Xingguang Huaiyu stared at Nie Tian. Her eyes were filled with shock, confusion, desire, anger, and a trace of panic. When the others saw the Emperor's reaction, they could not help but be stunned. In their eyes, the Emperor was a peerless warrior whose strength could shake the heavens. He would not bat an eyelid in the face of a landslide, but why was he so flustered at this moment? This was the first time they had seen the Emperor react like this, and they could not help but feel uneasy. Nie Tian frowned. From Xingguang Huaiyu's reaction, the eternal light she spoke of must be something vital to the angel clan. Things seemed to be more serious than he had imagined. "How did it happen? This Emperor wants you to tell me in full detail." After a moment, Xingguang Huaiyu calmed down a little. Her eyes were like sharp blades as she stared at Nie Tian, as if she wanted to eat him up. Nie Tian frowned. After thinking for a moment, he recounted what happened in the Angel's Gate. At that time, the situation was very critical. It was prophesied that the Holy Seal was about to open. He endured the pain and walked out of the Angel Gate, finally stopping the Holy Seal from opening at the last moment. But the moment he walked out of the Angel Gate, he suddenly felt a strange and majestic power descend, and it actually fused with the prophecy Holy Seal. After that, the Holy Seal of prophecy closed, and the majestic power was brought out of the Angel Gate. The glowing shield around Nie Tian's body had been condensed by that power. From the looks of it, that power was the eternal light that the angels spoke of. Prophecy seal? Xingguang Huaiyu frowned and sneered. "I, the Emperor, would like to see what kind of holy seal it is to be able to absorb the eternal light." As soon as she finished speaking, she stretched out her hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. Immediately, a powerful suction force enveloped Nie Tian and forcefully dragged him in front of her. Under the suppression of the terrifying power, Nie Tian could not move at all. He was like a piece of meat on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Xingguang Huaiyu raised her hand slightly. Nie Tian's palm opened involuntarily, and in the center of his palm was the prophecy seal. The prophecy seal was still a cluster of runes, but it was faintly shrouded in a layer of light, and it looked even more strange. Xingguang Huaiyu sensed the prophecy seal, and her pretty face changed again and again. The others watched from the side, not daring to breathe loudly. Although this generation's emperor was a woman, she was more domineering than the previous generations of emperors. The great elders did not dare to be disrespectful in front of her. A moment later, Xingguang Huaiyu suddenly made a shocking move. She suddenly reached out her palm and touched Nye Tian's palm. Then, she released rays of holy light that rushed towards Nye Tian's palm. Arg! In an instant, Nye Tian felt a tearing pain being released from the center of his palm. It instantly assaulted his entire body, making him cry out uncontrollably. Stinking brat, the eternal light is the supreme power of the angel race. How can you possess it? Xingguang Huaiyu's pretty face was sinister as she said in a deep voice. She actually wanted to forcefully strip the prophecy seal and the eternal light from Nye Tian's body. When the others saw this scene, their eyes could not help trembling, feeling incredibly shocked. Xingguang Huaiyu was seriously too crazy. She actually wanted to strip away the eternal light. As the emperor of the angel race, Xingguang Huaiyu was a peak powerhouse of the present age. Under her palm, Nye Tian did not have the strength to retaliate at all. But right at this time, Xingguang Huaiyu saw a series of black marks appearing on her palm. They were like little snakes, crawling along her palm toward her wrist. What's going on? She could not help but be shocked by this shocking scene. Her pretty face turned pale with fright as she retracted her palm. But it was too late. She felt a violent force rushing along her arm, causing her martial body to shake. She took a few steps back and almost lost her footing as she spat out a mouthful of blood. Emperor! The elders were shocked by the scene in front of them. At first, they were stunned. Then, they reacted and exclaimed in unison. Never in their wildest dreams did they imagine that holy light royal universe would be injured. This seal is strange. Xingguang Huaiyu steadied herself. Her pair of beautiful eyes trembled uncontrollably as fear lingered in her heart. Fortunately, she retracted her hand in time. If she was just a little slower, when the black marks spread to her entire arm, the sudden explosion of impact would definitely have severely injured her even if it did not kill her. She clearly did not expect the seal in Nye Tian's hand to contain such terrifying power. But Nye Tian was only at the heavenly justice stage. How could he withstand such a powerful seal? Nye Tian broke free from Xingguang Huaiyu's control. After stabilizing himself, he immediately checked the prophecy seal. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with the seal, he was relieved. When Qing Qi had told him that the instant the prophecy seal was activated, the power that erupted was enough to devour a peak-level sky martial arts divine ancestor martial artist. He did not believe it at first, but now he completely believed it. Xingguang Huaiyu had only absorbed a bit of the seal's power, and she was already injured. This showed how powerful the seal was. One should know that Xingguang Huaiyu was not an ordinary peak-level sky martial arts divine ancestor martial artist. She was one of the strongest martial artists in the world. With her strength, she could not resist the power of the prophecy seal, let alone others. Kid, where did you get the seal in your hand? Xingguang Huaiyu took a deep breath. Her pretty face looked much better, but her tone was still very low and cold. Nye Tian did not hide anything. He briefly explained the origin of the prophecy seal. The ancient sacred ancestral land. Firmament Emperor. Xingguang Huaiyu's beautiful eyes trembled when she heard Nye Tian's words. Her pretty face became gloomy. It turned out that Nye Tian's seal was obtained from the ancient sacred ancestral land. Moreover, it came from an expert from a long time ago. No wonder it was so terrifying. Chapter 41-43. In the Angel Temple, Nye Tian looked at Xingguang Huaiyu and noticed that the latter's expression was strange. He frowned and said, "The Sky Emperor said that the prophecy seal is used to find the prophecy child." The prophecy child. Xingguang Huaiyu's eyes narrowed. He clearly thought of something and fell into deep thought. Could it be? At this moment, one of the great elders also thought of something. He couldn't help but let out a strange cry. Then, his face turned pale and he didn't dare to speak. Nye Tian swept his gaze over Xingguang Huaiyu and the others and frowned. He didn't know what they were thinking. They seemed very mysterious. Kid, you said that your prophecy seal will only activate when you meet the prophecy child, right? After a while, Xinguang Huaiyu calmed down and stared at Nie Tian. There was a trace of nervousness in his tone. Yes. Nie Tian nodded. At least according to the Sky Emperor, the prophecy seal would only activate when the prophecy child appeared. Is that fellow really the prophecy child? Xinguang Huaiyu frowned as if she was talking to herself. That fellow? Which fellow? Nie Tian was stunned. He couldn't understand what Xinguang Huaiyu was talking about. Could it be that he really met the prophecy child? If he really met the prophecy child, there was no reason for the prophecy seal to fail. However, the strange activation of the prophecy seal must be related to the power in the Angel's Gate. Could there be some power in the Angel's Gate that was related to the prophecy seal? Also, what kind of power was that mysterious eternal light? How could it make the experts of the angel tribe so nervous? At this moment, Xinguang Huaiyu looked at an old man with a long goatee and said, "Second Elder, come and take a look at the seal on his palm. Is there a way to remove it?" Yes. Second Elder Lan Kexing agreed and went to Nie Tian's side. He started to carefully observe the prophecy seal on his palm. After a long time, he looked at Xinguang Huaiyu and shook his head with an ugly expression. This emperor only wants the curse seal. This brat's life or death doesn't matter. Xinguang Huaiyu's face was gloomy and cold. Nie Tian frowned and sucked in a breath of cold air. How could he not hear that Xinguang Huaiyu wanted to strip the prophecy holy seal from his body? As for whether he lived or died, it didn't matter at all. Lord Emperor, this sigil is no small matter. If it's forcefully removed, this kid will definitely die, and it's extremely likely that the sigil will be destroyed. Lan Kexing's expression was similarly gloomy as he replied gloomily. What about the eternal light? Xinguang Huaiyu's eyes trembled. As long as the eternal light could remain intact, he did not care if the prophecy seal was destroyed. It will be destroyed along with the sigil. Lan Kexing nodded. When the other supreme elders heard Lan Kexing's words, their expressions became gloomy and their eyes revealed shock. They didn't expect the sigil in Nie Tian's palm to be so terrifying that it could destroy the eternal light. However, Xinguang Huaiyu still refused to give up. After thinking for a long time, he asked again, "Second Elder, what if I use the angel's blood wings?" Second Elder Lan Kexing's eyes flickered with surprise and he said, "Emperor, you mean to use the angel's blood wings to protect the eternal light and prevent it from being destroyed by the sigil?" Yes. Xinguang Huaiyu nodded and asked, "Can it be done?" "There's a slight chance." Lan Kexing's eyes were blazing as he said, "But the chance isn't great." "How confident are you?" Xinguang Huaiyu gulped and asked. Lan Kexing's eyes trembled as he nodded and said, "I'm not strong enough to control the angel's blood wings. If the four ancestors are willing to help, I should have a 50% chance." 50%. The corners of Xinguang Huaiyu's mouth twitched, a strange light surged in his eyes as he said, "It's worth a try." "Your Excellency Emperor, you mustn't." But at this time, a voice resounded. Fifth Elder Xinguang Muxue stood up and said, "The angel's blood wings and the eternal light are the supreme treasures of our clan. We cannot risk them. If the plan succeeds, everything will be fine, but if it fails, our race will lose both the blood angel wings and the blood angel wings. The eternal light." The others looked at Xinguang Muxue. They seemed to be tempted, but none of them dared to stand out. They all knew that the emperor of this generation had a violent temper and was ruthless in his methods. Once he decided on something, it would be very difficult to change his mind. Sometimes he wouldn't even hesitate to use ruthless methods. Xinguang Mushue's bluntness was akin to touching a tiger's butt. "Fifth Elder, this emperor doesn't see that you want to protect my clan's sacred relic." Xinguang Huaiyu smiled coldly. Then, his cold eyes locked on Nie Tian. He said in a deep voice, "I want to protect him." "This." Xinguang Muxue was shocked. He paused for a moment and said, "Your Excellency Emperor, although Nie Tian is a young martial artist, his current identity is no small matter. He is the guardian of the 9 seals of origin. Behind him stands the 5 academies. If we kill him, I'm afraid it will be disadvantageous to the Angel clan. 5 academies? Xingguang Huaiyu smiled coldly and said sternly, "Fifth Elder, I think you have been the dean for too long that you have forgotten that you are a member of the Angel clan." Xingguang Muxue was startled by the murderous intent in Xingguang Huaiyu's eyes. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Chills ran down his spine and he couldn't speak. "Fifth Elder, you are a member of the Angel clan. Don't talk about the 5 academies so easily." At this moment, Second Elder Lan Kexing grinned gloomily. His eyes narrowed into slits as he looked at Xingguang Muxue and said, "I'd like to ask, if a conflict breaks out between the Angel race and the 5 academies you speak of, I'd like to ask, which side are you on?" Xingguang Muxue was shocked once again, and his face was filled with shock. Of course, he knew that Lan Kexing was Xingguang Yu's confidant. Lan Kexing was best at carrying out all of Xingguang Yu's decisions. It was obvious that Lan Kexing could tell that Xingguang Huaiyu wanted to forcefully strip the eternal light from Nie Tian's body, so he naturally had to support him. "Fifth Elder, you don't have to say any more. This emperor doesn't believe that Zhuge Qiyun would fall out with my Angel clan over a child." Xingguang Yu sneered and said, "This matter is decided. Second Elder, go and invite the 4 ancestors and explain the situation to them." "Yes," Lan Kexing answered and immediately turned around, preparing to leave the Angel Temple. Nie Tian's expression was dark and ugly. Xingguang Yu didn't care about his life and wanted to forcefully strip the eternal light. Nie Tian was weak, so he naturally couldn't resist. His life depended on whether Zhuge Qiyun and the others were willing to protect it. Rumble. At this moment the entire temple suddenly shook violently, as if it had been hit by a huge force. Immediately, a holographic image appeared in midair. It was the Angel's Gate. This sudden scene caused Xingguang Yu's expression to change, and she immediately looked at the Angel's Gate. Bang! In the holographic image, the Angel's Gate shook violently, and then suddenly exploded, directly shattering. Chapter 41-44. Nie Tian's expression flickered, and he couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. The Angel's Gate had collapsed. This was something he had never expected. What was even more unexpected was that a silhouette had rushed out of the Angel's Gate. Could it be that this person had been hiding in the Angel's Gate all this time? "Stop him. Do not let him leave the city." It was at this moment that Xingguang Imperial Universe finally snapped out of his daze. With a shriek of shock, he dashed out of the hall. The others reacted at the same time and rushed out of the hall. In the blink of an eye, only Nie Tian was left in the Angel's Temple. Nie Tian's expression changed and he also rushed out of the hall. He wanted to know what in the world happened to actually make the few powerhouses of the Angel clan so panicky. But the moment he left the hall, he suddenly felt a tearing pain in his palm. The prophecy seal had reacted. He was shocked and subconsciously retreated back into the hall. The pain in his hand disappeared. What's going on? The unexpected turn of events confused Nie Tian, as he didn't know what was going on. Then, he tried a few more times. Every time he stepped out of the hall, the prophecy seal would activate. But when he stepped back, the prophecy seal would return to normal. Could there be some kind of seal or prohibition in this hall that can stop the prophecy seal from activating? Nie Tian guessed. Yes. Amidst the bewilderment, Little Fat Cat's voice rang out. It nodded heavily and said, "I can sense that there is indeed a very strong restriction on this hall." That's right. At this time, Ghost Emperor, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke. He smiled and said, "To be precise, this prohibition does not stop the prophecy seal from activating. It only stops the connection between the prophecy seal and the prophecy child." "I see." Nie Tian nodded and understood. But the next moment, his expression changed and he exclaimed, "Could it be that the prophecy child has appeared?" Ghost Emperor was obviously saying that when Nie Tian walked out of the hall, the prophecy seal and the prophecy child had connected. He should have appeared. The Ghost Emperor replied, "Judging from the reaction of the angel race, that person's identity is probably not simple." That person? Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly. He then thought of something and said in shock, "You mean that the person who escaped from the angel's gate is the prophecy's child?" The Ghost Emperor nodded and didn't say anything else. Nie Tian's mind went blank for a few seconds before he came back to his senses. His eyes were slightly trembling as he quickly figured everything out. Without a doubt, there was a person hiding in the angel's gate. Furthermore, this person was very likely to be the prophesied child that the Sky Dome Emperor was looking for. When Nie Tian entered the angel's gate, the seal of prophecy was activated because of this person. Fortunately, Nie Tian had walked out of the angel gate in time and cut off the connection between the prophecy child and the prophecy holy seal, allowing him to escape death. However, when he was in the angel's gate, due to the resonance between the prophecy child and the prophecy holy seal, the angel's gate became unstable. In the end, the angel's gate collapsed and that person escaped. Right now, that person should still be in the city of angels. Otherwise, the prophecy holy seal wouldn't have sensed him. I speculate that when you were in the angel's gate, the prophecy holy seal's power leaked out when it was activated. That's why he was able to escape from the angel's gate. Little Fat Cat said solemnly, "That guy definitely isn't. This fellow is definitely not a simple character." Nie Tian nodded, his expression very unsightly. He was facing a lot of trouble that he had yet to resolve, and the prophecy holy seal had activated again. Misfortune never came alone. Following this, Nie Tian didn't dare to act rashly. After a while, he tried to walk out of the sacred hall. However, at this instant, a sinister ghost face appeared in his mind. It revealed a sinister smile and let out a sinister cry. It seemed like it was crying and laughing strangely at the same time. He couldn't help but freeze and break out in a cold sweat. "Little fellow, I didn't expect the Sky Dome to give you the prophecy holy seal." At this moment the ghost face actually spoke. It laughed wildly and shouted, "Take care of the holy seal for me for now. When my strength recovers, I'll come and find you." Ha ha! The ghost face disappeared in an instant, but the wild laughter lingered in Nie Tian's mind for a long time. Nie Tian came to his senses and couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. His face was a little pale. In that instant, he felt as if his divine soul had been imprisoned, causing him to feel despair. What kind of terrifying existence was hiding behind that ghost face? After a while, Nie Tian became cold. He suddenly realized that there was no longer any abnormal reaction in his palm. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. It seemed like the prophecy child had disappeared, and the prophecy holy seal was no longer responding. Next, Nie Tian slowly walked out of the holy temple. When the prophecy holy seal no longer changed, he was relieved. He wanted to go to the angel's gate to check on the situation, but after thinking about it, he held back and decided to wait outside for Xinguang Huaiyu and the others to return. If Xinguang Huaiyu and the others insisted on killing him, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to, so he might as well face it calmly. After a while, Xinguang Huaiyu and the others returned with ugly expressions. "Return to the holy temple with me, the emperor." Nie Tian looked at Xinguang Huaiyu and was about to say something, but the latter growled in a low voice. He couldn't be disobeyed. The corner of his mouth twitched. He had a helpless expression and could only return to the holy temple. "Lord Emperor, what do we do now?" The holy temple was filled with a murderous aura. Second Elder Lan Keqing stepped forward and asked anxiously, "What do we do?" Xinguang Huaiyu's face was grim. Gritting his teeth, he roared angrily. How would this emperor know what to do? The angel's gate was destroyed. That guy escaped. My angel tribe is going to face a calamity of extinction. Lan Kexing sensed the killing intent in Xinguang Yu's eyes and his body involuntarily trembled. Swaying a little, he took several steps back. He knew that Xinguang Yu was enraged and wanted to kill. That person imprisoned by the angel's gate escaped. This was really a calamity of genocide for the entire angel tribe. The entire holy temple was deathly silent. One could hear a pin drop. The atmosphere was stifling. Nie Tian's brows furrowed, faintly feeling a trace of foreboding. It's all because of you. It was at this moment that Xinguang Imperial Universe let out a furious roar. Like a mad beast, his aura burst forth, causing the entire hall to tremble. Glaring at Nie Tian with eyes as sharp as blades, he shouted, "If you hadn't shown up, the angel gate would have been destroyed." Chapter 41-45. Above the angel's temple, a powerful force rolled like a waterfall. Like a primordial beast, it pounced down on Nie Tian. It was a fatal blow. Nie Tian stood rooted to the ground. Feeling the violent force coming at him, he was shocked beyond words. The disparity in strength between them made it impossible for him to resist. "Emperor, no!" At the moment of life and death, a low growl rang out. Following that, a powerful force burst out and formed a net of holy light in the air, trapping Nie Tian within. Pung! In the next moment, the powerful force fell and the net of holy light broke. However, it also negated most of the force. Nie Tian's body swayed a few times before he stood firm. Blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth, but he was fine. "Thank you, Dean." After he stood still, he bowed slightly and thanked Xinguang Muxue. At the critical moment, it was Xinguang Muxue who made a move to save his life. If it weren't for Xinguang Muxue, he would have died without a corpse. The Angel Emperor was one of the strongest people in the world. He was not someone he could fight against. "Xinguang Muxue, how dare you stop me, the Emperor?" Xinguang Yu's eyes darkened. His killing intent was revealed as he growled. The other high elders were horrified, each and every one of them trembling with fear, not daring to breathe loudly. As the Angel Emperor, Xinguang Yu had the highest position in the Angel tribe. Her personality was ruthless and tyrannical. No one dared to go against her. Xinguang Muxue actually dared to make a move at this moment. He must be tired of living. "Emperor, please forgive me." Xinguang Muxue felt the killing intent in Xinguang Yu's eyes. His heart skipped a beat. He knelt on the ground and said respectfully, "I have no intention of offending you, it's just that." "Just what?" Xinguang Yu's face darkened as he asked Xinguang Yu. Xinguang Muxue looked at Nie Tian with a peculiar look in her eyes as she said, "It's just that this is no small matter. This concerns the life and death of our angel tribe, so I hope that you can deal with this matter calmly." "That's why you dared to make a move on me, right?" Xinguang Imperial Universe's face was so dark that it could send chills down one's spine. "I dare not." Xinguang Muxue's body was drenched in cold sweat, and she didn't even dare to raise her head. All of a sudden, Xinguang Yu raised his hand, and a burst of blood burst forth. One of Xinguang Muxue's arms had been severed. It was the arm that he had used to make a move earlier. "Xinguang Muxue, this arm is for you to remember," Xinguang Yu said coldly. "The Emperor's authority is not to be challenged." "Xinguang Muxue, this arm is for you to remember," Xinguang Imperial Universe said coldly. "The prestige of the Emperor is inviolable. This subordinate will bear that in mind," Xinguang Muxue replied respectfully. "All right. Stand up and speak." After a while, Xinguang Yu calmed down. He raised his hand and said, "Thank you, Emperor." Xinguang Muxue let out a breath of turbid air and stood up slowly. "Thank you, Emperor." Xinguang Muxue let out a breath of turbid air and stood up slowly. His arm wasn't broken in vain. Nie Tian's life was saved. "Everyone, what do you think?" Xinguang Yu's face was gloomy and cold, but there was no killing intent. She had calmed down. She glanced at the other great elders and asked. The angel clan used to have an angel emperor and 9 angel monarchs. However, the angel monarchs were abolished and replaced with 9 great elders. Actually, the great elders and the angel monarchs were the same. They were just addressed differently. However, the current emperor was overbearing. Therefore, the 9 great elders seemed to be weaker than the angel monarchs. However, the great elders still had the right to speak when it came to important matters. Lord Imperial Monarch, this matter is of great importance. I think that we should invite the Grand Elder and the 4 ancestors over. 9th Elder Qi Zhenxiong took a step forward and spoke in a low voice. 9th Elder is right. The others agreed. They didn't dare to express their opinions. 2nd Elder, invite the Great Elder and the other Great Elders. As for the 4 ancestors, don't disturb them for the time being. Xinguang Yu frowned and said after some thought. Yes. Lan Kexing replied and left the sacred hall. Xinguang Yu watched Lan Kexing's figure disappear. She then looked at Xinguang Muxue and said, Third brother, you risked your life to protect that kid. It seems that you already have an idea. Tell me about it. That's right. Xinguang Muxue was Xinguang Yu's younger half-brother. Both of them were geniuses of the Holy Light clan. However, they didn't have a good relationship. Lord Emperor. Xinguang Muxue raised his head and hesitated for a moment before saying, Chiemo has escaped. The Angel clan will definitely face a huge crisis. Back then, the first emperor almost risked his life to imprison this person in the Angel's Gate. Now that he has escaped from the Angel's Gate, he will definitely seek revenge from the Angel clan. The clan will take revenge. Chimo's current strength isn't strong, but his astral body is indestructible. We can't kill him. I think that since Chimo escaped because of Nie Tian, we might as well hand over the responsibility of killing Chimo to him. Xinguang Yu frowned. Then, she turned to Nie Tian and sneered. Do you really think he'll be able to kill Chimo? Chimo may be strong, but Emperor, don't forget that Nie Tian has the eternal light. Xinguang Muxue raised his head and looked at Xinguang Yu with a determined look. I think that since the eternal light has chosen Nie Tian, there must be a reason. Moreover, the prophecy seal in Nie Tian's hands is also something that Chimo is interested in. If we kill Nie Tian, I'm afraid we won't be able to destroy the prophecy seal. The biggest possibility is that Chimo has absorbed the prophecy seal and his strength has greatly increased. He will undoubtedly be a greater threat to the Angel clan. Xinguang Yu's eyes darkened slightly. She was obviously thinking about Xinguang Muxue's words. At a certain moment, her eyes swept over Nie Tian. She couldn't help but be shocked when she saw the latter's calm face without the slightest panic. To be able to remain calm under such an oppressive atmosphere meant that Nie Tian had a strong state of mind that ordinary people couldn't reach. Everyone thought that whether a martial artist could become a powerhouse or not, talent was especially important. But Xinguang Yu knew that a strong state of mind was the most important factor to become a powerhouse. If one's state of mind was not strong, it would be useless no matter how high one's talent was. Is the survival of the Angel clan going to be placed on the shoulders of an outsider? Xinguang Yu's eyes were strange. She couldn't make up her mind. Chimo was a monster that even the first emperor couldn't kill. Now that it had escaped, once it grew up, it would undoubtedly bring a disaster to the Angel clan. As the current emperor, Xinguang Yu naturally had to bear the heavy responsibility of the Angel clan's survival. But at this moment she felt a little powerless. Chapter 41-46. Boom. Above the Angel Temple, raging flames surged. The scorching heat seemed capable of burning everything in its path. Nie Tian's mind trembled as he sensed the terrifying aura coming at him. Immediately, he retreated at full speed. However, the speed of the flames was extremely fast. Under the strong impact, the space and time seemed to be covered in mist. The intense burning power pressed down from all directions, leaving him no room to retreat. At this critical moment, a majestic force descended from the void, transforming into an invisible giant hand that forcefully pulled Nye Tian out of the raging flames. Emperor, could it be that you want to protect this star of calamity who has brought calamity upon the angel tribe? Then, a figure descended on the angel temple like a mountain, causing the void to tremble. The aura emanating from his body was violent. Although his face was old, his eyes were filled with malice and murderous intent. Great Elder, this matter is of great importance. Don't commit an irreversible mistake because of a moment of anger. Xingguang Huaiyu frowned as she stared coldly at the newcomer. The newcomer was none other than the Angel Tribe's great elder, Anye Ming. Emperor, this kid is the one who destroyed the Angel Gate. Are you sure you want to protect him? The muscles on Anye Ming's aged face trembled slightly as he spoke with a faint smile. Nye Tian was also somewhat puzzled. He hadn't expected that Xingguang Huaiyu would actually step in to save him. Great Elder, his life and death are not for you to judge on your own. This emperor invited you here to negotiate, not to kill someone. Xingguang Huaiyu's eyes were as cold as ice as he spoke in a deep voice. Nye Tian frowned slightly. Xingguang Huaiyu appeared extremely calm in front of Anye Ming. Is that so? Anye Ming smiled sinisterly and retorted. This elder thought that the emperor wouldn't dare to kill this kid and that I would have to do it myself. Xingguang Huaiyu raised her brows slightly. Her pretty face was cold and solemn, but she didn't say anything. Everyone in the Angel clan knew that she didn't get along with the Great Elder. She was a member of the Angels of Light, and the Great Elder was a member of the Night Angels. There was already a lot of conflict between the two clans. In addition, there was a dispute between the two of them over the emperor. Although she eventually won and sat on the emperor's throne, it also led to a huge gap between the two of them. He was very suspicious. Xingguang Huaiyu knew that Anye Ming would definitely disagree with her, so she wasn't surprised by the current situation. Lord Emperor, Great Elder, please calm down. Right now, it's more important to discuss how to deal with the Angel's Gate. At this moment, Second Elder Lan Kashing arrived. He had already guessed that this would be the situation before them. Then, the other High Elders arrived as well. The Emperor of the Angel race and the 8 High Elders were gathered together. Such a situation was indeed rare. There was also a High Elder who was temporarily not in the City of Angels, so he couldn't rush over immediately. They could only discuss first. Everyone, 5th Elder has already expressed his opinion. He wants to protect this kid. You guys should also voice your opinion. Xingguang Huaiyu didn't waste any time and said directly. His gaze was like a blade as it swept through everyone present, secretly remembering their reactions in his heart. Lord Emperor, I also think that this kid should be kept. Since the Eternal Light has chosen him, we don't have to take the risk. Let him deal with that guy. Lan Kashing was good at reading people's expressions. He had already seen through Xingguang Huaiyu's thoughts. He stepped forward and said calmly. Previously, Xingguang Huaiyu had suggested stripping the Eternal Light from Nye Tian's body. However, this method was too risky. If they were not careful, they could destroy the Eternal Light. Moreover, they all knew that the Eternal Light was the only power that could kill Chiemo. They couldn't afford to lose it. Lan Kashing was Xingguang Huaiyu's confidant, so it was normal for him to support the latter. Xingguang Huaiyu nodded slightly. He looked at Anye Ming meaningfully and asked, What do you think, Great Elder? This kid destroyed the Angel Gate, severing the foundation of my Angel tribe. He's the ultimate enemy of my Angel tribe. Instead of killing him, you want him to be the hero of the Angel tribe. Aren't you belittling yourselves? Anye Ming's expression was cold. He looked at Nye Tian with a cold, murderous intent. What about the rest of you? Xingguang Huaiyu already knew that Anye Ming would have such an attitude. The other elders were hesitant and did not want to respond. Lord Emperor, the survival of the angel clan shouldn't be placed on the shoulders of an outsider, the third elder, Anya Zhang, said after a short while. He was Anya Ming's younger brother, so it was normal for him to support him. Xingguang Huaiyu frowned. After a moment of silence, she suddenly looked at Nie Tian and asked, "Kid, do you have anything to say?" She and the great elder belonged to two different factions. Now that they had different opinions, there was no point in continuing to argue. It was better to test Nie Tian and see how he would react. What can a kid who's still wet behind the ears have to say? Anya Ming was slightly surprised and sneered. He hadn't noticed it before. Only now did he realize that Nie Tian was standing in the same spot. Of course, Nie Tian wasn't scared out of his wits. Instead, he was listening quietly. Nie Tian knew that Xingguang Huaiyu was giving him a chance to speak. In fact, he was giving him a chance to live. As for whether he could live or not, it was up to him. "Lord Emperor, I want to know what's going on with the Angel Gate," Nie Tian said with a calm smile. He didn't look like someone who was standing on the edge of life and death. "Now that things have come to this, I should tell you whether you live or die." Xingguang Huaiyu nodded. Actually, the Angel Gate is an imprisonment formation built by the first emperor. The formation contained the bloodline power of the first Emperor Lord and the first 9 great angel kings, as well as many angels. There are also many angels who possess great power to imprison the archenemy of the angels, the Qi demon god. The Qi demon god. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He immediately recalled that before he entered the city, he saw a huge demon statue in the city. It was the Qi demon god. At that time, he was curious as to why there was a demon statue in the city. However, Huadongtai said that it was a taboo of the angels and he couldn't say much about it. Now, it seemed that the relationship between the Qi demon god and the angels was not simple. The Angel Gate contains the strongest power of the angels, the eternal light. It was used to suppress the Qi demon god. Xingguang Huaiyu's eyes dimmed. But because you unintentionally absorbed the eternal light, it allowed the Qi demon god to escape. That's how it is. What do you think the angels should do? What should we do? Nie Tian frowned. After a long silence, he looked up at Xingguang Huaiyu. "Lord Emperor, what if I eliminate the Qi demon god for the angels?" As soon as he finished speaking, the entire hall fell into a dead silence. Chapter 41-47. Waves of laughter came from the sacred angel palace. Anya Ming and the others looked at the silver-haired young man, as if he was an idiot. Nie Tian stood on the spot and swept his gaze across the crowd. He was extremely calm with a faint smile on his face. "Everyone, are you done laughing?" After a while, when the laughter gradually died down, Nie Tian smiled and said, "If you're done laughing, let's continue our discussion." "All right." Anya Ming's expression sank. The disdain in his eyes intensified as he said, "Brat, I want to hear what you have to say." Nie Tian smiled and said, "I know you don't believe that I have the ability to kill demon god Qi, but do you have a choice now?" "Brat, what do you mean by this? Are you trying to threaten us?" Anya Ming's gaze turned fierce as he growled. Nie Tian didn't panic at all. With a smile on his face, he said slowly, "Since the Qi demon was conferred by the first God Emperor, it means that he's as strong as the first God Emperor. The first Emperor sealed him but did not kill him, which means that the first Emperor could not kill him and could only seal him. Everyone is indeed very strong. However, I believe that there is still a gap between you and an early-stage sovereign emperor. If even the first emperor could not kill demon god Qi, how are you going to fight him?" Anya Ming's eyes flickered. He didn't expect Nie Tian to see through the situation so thoroughly. "Brat, even we killed demon god Qi, do you think you can?" Anya Ming's expression changed again and he sneered. "I can't guarantee anything, but my chances are definitely higher than yours." Nie Tian raised his brows and said, "The eternal light is in my hands. If the eternal light can suppress demon god Qi, then I can use this power to kill demon god Qi with that. He looked at An Yiming with bright and confident eyes. Humph! An Yiming sneered. Brat, the eternal light can indeed suppress demon god Qi, but this power is too strong. Even the first emperor couldn't fully control it. You're just a puny Saint Tianyi. What right do you have to control this power? The corners of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. He took a step forward, and a faint layer of light appeared around his body. After that, he opened his palm, and the light slowly condensed into a ball of light in the center of his palm. It was as bright as a star. This! Dark Yiming gasped in shock at the sight before him, unable to utter a single word. He couldn't believe that Nie Tian could control the eternal light to such an extent. The eternal light was the strongest power of the angel race. It was impossible for ordinary angel race martial artists to fuse with this power. As an outsider, the fact that Nie Tian was able to gain control of eternal light within such a short period of time despite having fused with it was simply too terrifying. The other elders, including Xingguang Huaiyu, were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it. Everyone, even if you manage to take the eternal light from me, can you find someone suitable to fuse with it? Nie Tian put away the eternal light and said with a faint smile, "Furthermore, once I die, the prophecy sacred seal will leave my body, which will greatly increase demon god Qi's strength. I don't think you want to see that happen. You want me to hand over the fate of the angel race to you just because of this?" An Yiming's face darkened as he spoke in a cold tone. "Leave demon god Qi to me. The angel race still has a chance. Otherwise, you can only wait for death." Nie Tian's expression was solemn. "Brat, you're still too young to threaten me." An Yiming growled when he sensed the pressure in Nie Tian's eyes. He unleashed his aura, causing the void to rumble. "First Elder." At that moment, Xingguang Huaiyu stepped forward and said, "Since we can't decide, let's invite the 4 patriarchs to make a decision." "All right." An Yiming nodded with a gloomy expression. His eyes were cold. Then, Xingguang Huaiyu asked Lan Kexing to invite the 4 patriarchs. Apart from the emperor and the 9 elders, there were 4 patriarchs in the angel race. They were usually the previous emperor and the elders. Lan Kexing quickly invited the 4 patriarchs. The 4 patriarchs were dressed in black and had short bodies. Although their auras were strong, they did not have a sharp aura. They were like withered leaves on a tree that was about to rot. Even a martial artist who had reached the peak of the sky martial arts divine ancestor realm could not fight against time. When their time came, everything would be for naught. The 4 patriarchs were obviously at the end of their lifespan. No one knew how much time they had left. "Patriarchs." Xingguang Huaiyu bowed to the 4 patriarchs respectfully. As the emperor, he was overbearing. However, he still had to be respectful in front of the patriarch. "Emperor, what's the matter? Tell me." The leader of the patriarchs was a skinny old man. His face was full of wrinkles. He coughed and said, Xingguang Huaiyu did not waste any time. He told them about the eternal light and the Qi demon god. The 4 patriarchs did not have much of a reaction. Instead, they were very calm. "After so many years, this day has finally come." The skinny old man sighed. He then turned to Nie Tian and coughed. "Did you merge with the eternal light?" "Yes, I did." Nie Tian bowed slightly. He could sense peace and serenity from the old man in front of him, as well as a great sense of peace. "Not bad." The skinny old man stared at Nie Tian for a long time. He smiled. "My only regret is that you're not one of the angels." The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched. He did not say a word. "Emperor, how are you going to deal with this?" The skinny old man looked at Xingguang Huaiyu and asked with a smile. He looked like he was talking about family matters. "Patriarch, I'm going to groom him to be the guardian of the angels." Xingguang Huaiyu nodded and answered honestly. "Guardian?" The skinny old man frowned. He smiled strangely. "Then where are you going to put the guardian? Above or below you?" This. Xingguang Huaiyu was taken aback. He did not know how to answer. Ancestor, I think we should kill this brat and extract the eternal light from his body. Then, we should find a suitable person to fuse with the eternal light and fight against demon god Qi. At this moment, Yeming took a step forward and said with blazing eyes. The emaciated old man's bitter eyes lit up. He looked at Anya Ming and asked, Great Elder, do you think that even the first Emperor King couldn't control the eternal light? Do you think we can find someone more outstanding than the first Emperor King in our angel race? Dark Knight Cry was rendered speechless for a moment. Chapter 41-48 Heavenly Temple. When this name came out of the skinny ancestor's mouth, it shocked everyone present and caused them to be stunned. Nie Tian could not help but frown. It seemed like the Heavenly Temple was some sort of secret place that could not be casually entered. Ancestor, are we really going to let him enter the Heavenly Temple? After a long while, Xingguang Huaiyu spoke. His voice was clearly trembling, as though he was questioning and doubting the ancestor. Yes. The skinny ancestor nodded his head. His face was calm. Ancestor, the Celestial Temple is a secret ground of our race. Since its creation, we have never allowed outsiders to enter. Isn't it inappropriate for him to enter the Celestial Temple? Grand Elder Yeming also spoke up. Although he was against it, he was still cautious in his words. The Heavenly Temple was created by the first Emperor. He did not state that outsiders were not allowed to enter. Since we are relying on this young man, we should let him enter the Heavenly Temple. The skinny ancestor looked at Yeming and said, The Heavenly Temple is an opportunity for him. It is also a test for him. You are not, do you think that he does not have the ability to kill demon god Qi? Then let's wait and see. If he can complete the Heavenly Temple, we will let him be the guardian of the angel race. If he can't complete the Heavenly Temple, then we will kill him. When Xingguang Huaiyu heard the skinny ancestor's words, his pupils constricted. He was shocked on the spot. And Yeming was also taken aback. Then, he nodded his head and said, We will do as you say. Everyone else was shocked, especially Xingguang Muxue. He looked at Nie Tian with an unconcealable worry. Let's head over now. The skinny ancestor did not waste any time and said, Senior, before entering the Heavenly Temple, I have a small request. At this moment, Nie Tian smiled and bowed to the skinny ancestor. Go ahead. The skinny patriarch nodded with a smile. He seemed to be very easygoing. If I am lucky enough to complete the Heavenly Temple, I would like to borrow your blood angel wings. Please do me a favor, patriarch. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said with a calm expression. What? As soon as his voice fell, the few high elders let out a strange cry at the same time. This brat came to the city of angels and actually wanted to borrow the angel's blood wings? Was he crazy? No problem. But at this moment, the skinny patriarch smiled and calmly swept his gaze across the others. If he becomes the guardian of the angel race, there's no harm in using the angel blood wings. The high elders were stunned and could not react for a long time. Nie Tian followed the skinny old ancestor and the others. Soon, they arrived at the angel race's heavenly temple. Zhuge Kayun and the rest also followed. This is the heavenly temple? Nie Tian stared at the small door that looked like a tombstone. He could not help but furrow his brows in astonishment. He originally thought that the heavenly temple would be a majestic hall. He never imagined that it would be a small gravestone door. Yes. The skinny old ancestor nodded and said, Young man, you are the first outsider to enter the heavenly temple in tens of thousands of years. Don't disappoint me. The corners of Nie Tian's eyes twitched as he was filled with confusion. The small door in front of him was a bit strange. It looked like a tombstone, and there was even a small line of words written on it. For the first emperor. Anyone who saw this small door would think it was a tombstone. Senior, can I enter now? Nie Tian did not delay and directly asked. Don't worry. Wait for a few more people. The skinny old ancestor smiled. He was not in a hurry. A moment later, 3 figures appeared. They were 3 young martial artists. Nie Tian recognized one of them. It was the genius martial artist of the angel race, the holy light martial intent. Nie Tian. As the holy light martial intent saw Nie Tian, a strange light flashed in its eyes. It was surprised. Holy light martial intent, I didn't think that the person I was waiting for would be you. Nie Tian faintly smiled. His eyes swept over the holy light martial intent and then fell on the other 2 people. The other 2 people looked a bit older than the holy light martial intent. One was a blue-clothed man and the other was a green-clothed woman. Both of them were extraordinary characters. So your name is Nie Tian. Since the martial intent already knows you, there is no need to introduce you. The skinny old ancestor smiled. He pointed to the 2 people beside the holy light martial intent and said, "These 2 are also geniuses of our angel race. He is Dark Night Twilight Song and she is Lan Yuqing." Nie Tian nodded slightly. His eyes paused on Lan Yuqing. The latter looked somewhat similar to Lan Xuanyi. He didn't know if they were related. "Old ancestor, is he someone who wants to enter the heavenly temple?" Dark Night Twilight Song asked. He looked at Nie Tian with a strange expression. The skinny old ancestor nodded. He smiled and said, "Twilight Song, the 3 of you, don't lose face for our angel race. He is an outsider." Dark Night Twilight Song's complexion was gloomy and cold. "He is an exception. That is why the 3 of you will accompany him into the heavenly temple." The skinny old ancestor still had a smile on his face. He wasn't angry at all. "Then let me first see if he has the qualifications to enter the heavenly temple." Dark Night Twilight Song's complexion became even gloomier. He stepped forwards and a long sword appeared in his hand. He pointed it straight at Nie Tian and said, do you dare to fight with me?" The skinny old ancestor faintly smiled, not stopping him. Obviously, he intended to probe Nie Tian. "All right." Nie Tian faintly smiled. He had never been afraid of a fight. "Boy, Dark Night Twilight Song, do not like to take advantage of others. We do not need to fight, we can just compete in sword intent." Dark Night Twilight Song's lips twitched, a burning light flashing in his eyes. "Is your sword intent better than mine?" Nie Tian tried not to laugh, but the corner of his mouth twitched. "Are you afraid?" Dark Night Twilight Song's eyes darkened. Clearly, he had misunderstood Nie Tian. "Brother Dark Knight, my sword intent has never been defeated before. Do you really want to compete?" Nie Tian smiled slyly, reminding him out of goodwill. "So much nonsense." Dark Night Twilight Song's eyes trembled. He directly attacked. His sword pierced out like a dragon, aiming straight for Nie Tian. Purring! However, in the next moment, a muffled sound rang through the air. Dark Night Twilight Song was sent flying, leaving a deep gully on the ground. A trace of blood could be seen at the corner of his mouth. His face was filled with shock. He did not even see Nie Tian attack. Nie Tian relied on pure sword intent to directly defeat him. How was this possible? When swordsmen compete in sword intent, although it was not a competition of the strength of their swordsmanship, using a sword was undoubtedly much stronger than not using a sword. The strength of the same sword intent would be many times stronger with a sword than without a sword. And he, Dark Night Twilight Song, was known as the #1 swordsman among the younger generation of the Angel Clan. His talent in sword intent might not even be comparable to those of the older generation. However, Nie Tian defeated him in an instant without using a sword. This was too terrifying. Chapter 41-49. Nie Twilight Song was defeated by Nie Tian in a single move. He stood there in a daze, unable to react for a long time. He could not imagine that there was someone in this world with such a terrifying sword intent. The emaciated ancestor and Xingguang, why you were also stunned for a long time. They were clearly very shocked. Anya Twilight Song was a genius swordsman of the angel race. His sword intent was so strong that it could be ranked in the top 10 of the entire history of the angel race. However, he had been completely crushed by Nyetian. This scene was just too shocking. On the other hand, Zhuge Keyun and the others were very calm. During the Hidden Dragon struggle, they had already seen how terrifying Nyetian was. Nyetian had already created too many impossible things. Therefore, this scene was not surprising at all. I said that my sword intent has never been defeated before. Unfortunately, you didn't listen. Nyetian faintly smiled. The sincerity on his face was reflected in Anya Twilight Song's eyes. However, it was very provocative. Anya Twilight Song's face turned red. He was speechless. All right, we can begin the Celestial Temple test now. At this time, the emaciated ancestor calmed down and said excitedly. Nyetian nodded and stepped into the Celestial Temple. However, he was stopped by the emaciated ancestor. The latter said, Nyetian, you are the main tester for this test. Twilight Song and the other two will be assisting you. Let them enter first. All right. Nyetian's eyes swept over Anya Twilight Song and the other two. He faintly smiled and nodded. Following that, Anya Twilight Song, Lan Yuqing and the Holy Light Martial Intent entered the Celestial Temple. Suddenly, the atmosphere of the Celestial Temple changed slightly. It was as if a hidden door had been opened. Nyetian, the three of them will accompany you to the lowest levels of the Celestial Temple. They will help you open up some of the meridians. As for whether or not you can continue, that will depend on yourself. The emaciated ancestor looked at Nyetian, a strange light dancing in his eyes. Meridians? When Nyetian heard this word, he couldn't help but frown. He thought that he had heard wrong. The people of the Heavenly Temple were not humans, so how could they have meridians? You will understand once you enter the hall. The skinny ancestor smiled strangely, indicating that Nyetian could enter the hall. Nyetian faintly smiled as he strode into the Heavenly Temple. At the instant he entered, the doors of the Heavenly Temple closed. Then, a hologram appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was a humanoid hologram. Ancestor, in your opinion, do you think Nyetian will be able to complete the entire Heavenly Temple? Xingguang Huaiyu walked up and asked cautiously. I don't know. The shriveled elder shook his head, but his eyes were burning with anticipation. The geniuses of my angel clan, those who are able to step into the 6th level of the Heavenly Temple and above, are all heaven-defying talents. In the past 1,000,000 years, apart from that freak from the Qi clan, no one had ever walked through the 9th layer of the Celestial Pole. That kid is very talented, but it's impossible for him to traverse all 9 levels of the Celestial Pole. Anya Ming sneered, full of disdain towards Nyetian. Nyetian's talent is no less than Qi Shinu's. I, the Emperor, believe that whatever Qi Shinu can do, he can do it too. Xingguang Huaiyu glanced at Anya Ming and said calmly. The freak from the Qi clan that Anya Ming spoke of was Qi Shinu. In the past 1,000,000 years, only one person had walked through the entire Heavenly Temple. That person was Qi Shinu. Moreover, Qi Shinu was extremely terrifying. He only used 9 days to walk through the entire Heavenly Temple. In the entire history of the Angel Clan, he was ranked in the top 3. Unfortunately, Qi Shinu was seen as a taboo by the Angel Clan and did not receive the attention he deserved. Perhaps the Angel Clan still did not know that Qi Shinu had self-destructed and turned into a Jili soul, waiting for Nyetian to make his choice. Zhuge Keyun and the rest did not know what the Heavenly Temple was. However, they looked at the humanoid hologram in front of them with anticipation, hoping that Nyetian could create a miracle. At the same time, inside the Heavenly Temple, Nyetian stood in the darkness, feeling the aura in the air around him. His heart was filled with amazement. He felt a powerful pressure in the air. It was a pressure at the level of bloodline. It was extremely frightening. What was even more strange was that there was no gravity here. It was as if gravity had been counteracted by some kind of formation. That old man said that Anya Mingo and the other two were here to help me open up a portion of the meridians in the heavenly temple. I don't know what that means. Nyetian became cold and murmured, At this moment, he suddenly felt a terrifying force appear. It was like a ferocious beast, fiercely pouncing towards him. His reaction was extremely fast. He punched out and directly broke through the force. However, under the huge recoil, his figure flew back dozens of meters before he could stabilize himself. What kind of power is this? Why is it so strange? Nyetian was flabbergasted. Within this force, he felt an extremely powerful bloodline. It was a bloodline power that belonged to the Angel clan. It was even stronger than Qi Shinu's bloodline. Qi Shinu already possessed the supreme nine-winged bloodline and was known as a taboo existence. What kind of bloodline power could be more terrifying than Qi Shinu? Just as Nyetian was in a state of shock, another horrifying force came. Once again, he was pushed back dozens of meters. Nyetian steadied himself and spread out his consciousness to feel the energy waves in the air. Very quickly, he locked onto the source of the power. Break! The corner of his lips twitched. The sword of sky appeared in his hand and slashed across the dark sky. Wherever the sword light passed, blood appeared. Instantly, the smell of fresh blood permeated the air. It was pungent. Nyetian couldn't help but be taken aback. What kind of world had he come to? Then, he sensed the path of the energy waves and sprinted forward. Along the way, the sword light was unstoppable as it carved out a bloody path. After a while, he steadied himself and felt an extremely terrifying bloodline power in front of him. It was like a giant beast hiding in the void, waiting for the arrival of an uninvited guest. This bloodline power is much more terrifying than before. Nyetian frowned and couldn't help but feel nervous. He was not sure what kind of world he was in yet, so he must be cautious. He still didn't know what use Anya Twilight's Song and the others had. Anya Twilight's Song and the others clearly entered the celestial temple before him, but he couldn't find these three. It was very strange. Nyetian, don't you think that the attack just now was similar to a person's meridians? At this time, the little fat cat suddenly spoke, looking a little excited. What do you mean? Nyetian frowned, unable to react. What I mean is, this celestial temple is a person, Fat Cat said in a low voice. His eyes flickered with a strange light. The celestial temple is a person? Nyetian was stunned and couldn't wrap his head around this. Chapter 4150. Nyetian could feel the oppressive energy gushing towards him. His eyes trembled as he trembled in shock. This energy was too terrifying. He could even feel the impact of his bloodline. In an instant, he reacted. The sky sword pierced through the air. Sword shadows whizzed out, forcibly rushing out. Bang! In the next instant, a muffled sound rang out in the air. It was like a clap of thunder, causing the surrounding space to tremble. What a terrifying energy! Nyetian was incomparably shocked. He secretly tightened his grip on the sword in his hand. But before he could stabilize himself, the energy pounced towards him again. It was extremely violent. This time, Nyetian clearly saw the true form of the energy. It was a terrifying pillar of blood. The surging bloodline energy was like a raging tsunami, rushing downwards like a waterfall. Nyetian frantically retreated. An astral soul armor appeared on his body, barely blocking the attack of the blood pillar. He steadied himself, feeling that the energy was slowly dissipating. This made him extremely puzzled. Fat, what did you mean when you said that the celestial temple is a person? Nyetian did not pay attention to the blood pillar. He was more curious about the celestial temple. Nyetian, do you still remember what the old man said about opening the meridians? The fat cat's eyes flickered as it asked in a heavy tone. Of course I remember. Nyetian nodded his head heavily. Before entering the celestial temple, the skinny ancestor had told him that Anya, Twilight Song and the rest were here to help him open the meridians of the celestial temple. At that time, he did not understand what this meant. But now, after experiencing a few attacks, he vaguely understood something. The attack you encountered earlier revealed an extremely strong bloodline energy, just like the meridians of a person. The fat cat nodded its head lightly. I feel that this celestial temple is like a person. More accurately, it is a martial physique array. Martial physique array. Upon hearing these words, Nye Tian could not help but tremble in shock. Yes. The fat cat nodded his head heavily and said, I suspect that this heavenly temple was formed from the body of a martial artist. The meridians of this person had turned into the runes of the formation. I understand. Hearing this, Nye Tian's eyes blazed and he exclaimed, the attack I suffered just now was from that person's meridians. But in the next moment, he hesitated and said, but why? The power in front of me is far stronger than before. Because this power is not from ordinary meridians, but from this person's yuan meridians. The fat cat gave a strange smile and said, if this deity's guess is correct, each level of this 9-level heavenly temple is condensed from this person's elemental meridian. This. Nye Tian was stunned and was momentarily speechless. He could not think of a person who was so strong that he could use his body to create such a huge array. If the heavenly temple is really a martial physique array, then wouldn't I be fighting against this person with 9 yuan meridians? After a while, Nye Tian became cold and could not help but frown. That's right. The fat cat nodded and said, this deity speculates that this array is used to test martial artists. Moreover, the entire array is filled with powerful blood meridians, which can greatly increase a martial artist's strength. This person's blood meridians are even stronger than Qi Xinu's. He must have been a peerless expert when he was alive. Nye Tian nodded his head and could not help but feel great anticipation in his heart. It's highly possible that he was their first-generation emperor. The fat cat nodded slightly and said, Nye Tian, this is an opportunity for you. You must grasp it well. Yes. Nye Tian nodded heavily. Instantly, his confidence increased and his desire to fight soared. Then, he tried to take a few steps forward. Sure enough, he felt that the powerful force appeared again. This time, the force was even more violent than before. Yuan meridians, is it? This time, Nye Tian did not dodge. Instead, the corner of his lips twitched. Sword intent surged from his entire body, and he swung his sword. Like a giant dragon shaking the sky, the terrifying force engulfed everything. The blood pillar was pushed back dozens of meters. Nye Tian took this opportunity and rushed forward. The blood pillar reacted and became enraged. It condensed into a blood-red claw and attacked Nye Tian. Nye Tian, however, did not even look back. He rushed forward and successfully shook off the blood pillar. Boom! But right at this moment, the void in front of them rumbled. Following that, an even more terrifying power gushed out, sealing the space and pressing down on them. Nye Tian's expression flickered slightly as he unleashed his dragon shepherd aura. Like a raging dragon, he forcefully pushed the blood wave away. Relying on the dragon Mu Qi, he forcefully charged forward without any regard for anything else. He actually managed to disperse several blood pillars in succession. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at the 6th level of the heavenly temple. Just then, he saw 3 figures not far away. His eyes lit up with joy and he exclaimed, "It's you guys." He did not expect Anya Twilight Song and the others to arrive at the 6th level. You actually. Anya Twilight Song stared at Nye Tian. His pupils constricted and he was shocked speechless. They had only opened up some of the meridians of the heavenly temple, so they arrived at the 6th level quickly. But Nye Tian was actually trying to break through. How did he arrive at the 6th level? At the same time, outside the heavenly temple. At this moment, the skinny ancestor, Xinguang Huaiyu and the others stared at the humanoid figure in front of them. They were completely dumbfounded. Pro-ancestor, Nie Tian has entered the 6th level. After a long time, Xinguang Huaiyu finally reacted. His teeth were chattering as he asked. I saw it. The skinny ancestor nodded, as if he had just woken up from a dream. He was shocked beyond words. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that Nie Tian would arrive on the 6th floor of the Heavenly Temple in the blink of an eye. How long was that? It was only a few minutes. In the past, even the forbidden genius Qi Shinu of the Heavenly Temple took 3 days to reach the 6th floor. What kind of physique did Nie Tian have? Why did it seem like the bloodline pressure of the Heavenly Temple had no effect on him? Zhuge Qiyun and the others were all smiles. They were happy to see the skinny ancestor and the others' shocked expressions. Ancestor. At this moment, Anya Twilight Song and the others walked out of the Heavenly Temple. They were all dejected and listless. He really reached the 6th level? The skinny ancestor looked at Anya Twilight Song in disbelief. Yes. Anya Twilight Song nodded and said, he no longer needs our help. It's all up to him now. The skinny ancestor nodded in a daze and did not say anything. On the 6th level of the Heavenly Temple, Nie Tian had a puzzled look on his face. He found it strange that Anya Twilight Song and the others left without saying a word. Following which, he did not think too much and stepped into the 7th level.